Welcome back to the Rodcast, Tuesday edition of the Rodcast. Lots to discuss. We got the Monday night doubleheader. There was NFL history made last night. We'll get into that and talk about the results. Also, you got playoff baseball tonight. Go Stros! We'll talk about the Astros and their first round wildcard matchup. We'll also get into some other NFL news, notes, and nuggets from around the league. We'll talk about the most surprising teams throughout the NFL through 4 weeks. We'll also get to some Texans new discussion. Also, Cowboys on the docket as well. The Cowboys are not planning on pursuing a trade right now. That is not the plan. I think that's a mistake. We'll get into it coming up a little bit later on in the show. Also, we'll get to previewing the Astros' first postseason matchup. We'll get to that coming up a little bit later on in the show. We'll also get to Raj Rant. We got your usual favorites off the record. We got Who Said That. We got the What the Facts, What the Stats topic for the bet poll of the day. As usual, we are loaded on the show. And also, we're going to hear from Steve Sarkisian. We'll go behind the burnt orange curtain next segment, hear from the head coach from his Monday media availability. Even though they're going into the bye week, we still got a chance to hear from Sark. So we'll dive into some Texas football discussion coming up a little bit later on in the show. Got plenty to get into, but before we do, let's introduce you to the rest of the crew. He's one of the hardest working members of the ARN family. Got a hustler spirit, period. Not sure what he's paid, but I'm pretty damn sure this man is underpaid. Ain't no 401k for this hustler, and he's a hustle man of many talents. It's our friend, co-host, and neighbor. It's Patrick Davis, y'all. What's going on, Patrick? How you doing, brother?
I'm doing good. Ready to kick it off on a Tuesday. It is we get playoff baseball tonight, or actually today.
Yeah. Today.
They always
it's weird. I don't know why they do that to the Astros. Both of the games, right? First of the two games.
Every time the Astros play the day games. I don't know why.
It's weird.
It's still not. I know. So at least
the first one I understand. Today I understand, right? Because you got a more marquee game that's also the
but there's 4 games and they're marquee, the first.
Yeah.
So there's 4 full games. There's the first game on it. And what they do this to them every year. It's not as bad as it used to be, because it used to be they would put them on MLB Network. And MLB Network didn't have announcers like all seasons. They put together like a crew for the end of the season. So they had the worst announced crew, and it was all guys that were like players, but they all kind of aged out of commentating a few years ago.
So
they seemed like out of practice, and it was never good.
Retired gang.
Yeah, that was the comment of one of them where they were playing. And I think it was Jose Abreu that who said that one of the commentators said, "I would love to have 40 acres full of guys like that." And everyone's like, "Whoa, you can't, huh?"
What? Yeah, I don't know. It's a little outdated, that reference, and a little politically incorrect.
Yeah. So is that? But yeah, and we'll see if they start off like they do every single Astros playoff run. Just basically starting off with like, remember when the Astros cheated 7 years ago?
Hey man, it is one of their favorite storylines.
And they'll just go on that and be like, "Oh, well, I mean, they have to on this one because it's AJ Hinch."
Of course, yeah. No,
so they'll start it off with that again.
Storylines, yeah. Yep, get used to it. Now you're gonna hear it for the next week or so.
Every Astros playoff run starts with that, and you're just like, guys, could you not mention that they've been one of the most prolific teams in the last, like in all of sports history now, getting back to the LCS over and over and over again? No. We're gonna bring up the bad stuff because we want people to hate them. That's why you get the 130 spots.
Yeah, I guess. But to me, more people they hate watch the Astros. They also get, I think, big numbers because they're a good team. They're exciting, but also people love to hate the Astros because they're a villain.
People do love to hate them, even though I don't. And I'll never get it as much as I've let some things go. But
maybe it's like punishment though. Maybe it is kind of like punishment. It's like, no, that's just we'll put you guys in that daytime slot. That's just part of your kind of ongoing. Yeah, I mean, I don't know, because it's an ongoing thing. Like Astros fans can continuously complain about it all the time. That the Astros get kind of shafted with this daytime slot, even though they're going on a dynastic type run, and yet they still get kind of thrown into the daytime slot.
But it'll be fun. It doesn't matter. The good news is we're off the air at 10 a.m., so we have plenty of time to get ready to watch the game. So it's not as big of an issue for me and you. But I know
you got to work on a Monday, on Tuesday. Yeah, you're like, it's a big issue.
No, I've had to do many times in my life. I've had to manage to watch games in ways that probably
It's
wasn't
all right.
supposed to be
It's
watching
called
games.
a long lunch. Yeah, everybody knows how to take it.
Everybody knows
We
that
all
take
been
it.
there before. Yeah.
Let me introduce you to my co-host. He's a proud alumni of DBU. He's got more papers in Dunder Mifflin and watches more film than Siskel and Ebert. He is a new Rod, father of Austin Sports Radio, Mr. Rod Babers.
Appreciate the intro as always, brother. Yeah, and we'll get to breaking down that matchup for the Astros versus the Tigers. Tigers, that's one of the biggest surprises of the season.
Yeah, because they came back. They are also extremely hot. As the Astros, I don't know if they're as hot. They were really, really hot for a while and then kind of coasted through the end. But
they're kind of a Cinderella story of baseball
Tigers
this
coming
year.
back. Yeah. And I mean, you got the likely AL Cy Young winner. The Astros are going up against tonight. There's plenty of storylines. It'll be an interesting one to watch today, and then watch all the playoff baseball. And then somehow I wasn't even really paying that much attention to the NL playoff picture. But then they had that doubleheader of the Mets and Braves where they split it, and that means they both clinched a playoff spot.
That's weird.
So if one of them had won both, then the other one didn't make the playoffs. So there was other teams watching. I wasn't paying enough attention to the NL, but that was but yes, they both won one in the Monday wild card. So they both have to play today again. They do not get any time off before getting right back into the playoffs.
That's good, though, for baseball that it came down to the wire for a few teams. Yeah. That's always a good thing. Keep everybody invested as long as possible. So, we will talk some baseball, of course, because you got the playoffs starting up tonight, at least the postseason starting up tonight. We'll also get to, like I said, some Sark sound. Patrick got a chance to break down the Sark audio for us from his Monday media availability. We'll go behind the burnt orange curtain and do that next segment. But let's start off talking about, and we'll also get to the Texas OU line. I think that's also been released. So we'll get to that. I think FanDuel released the Texas OU line, and it's a big one. It's a thick one. So we'll get into that coming up. We talk Texas OU, even though we're on the bye week for Texas Longhorns. Let's talk about the game last night, though. You did have a Monday night doubleheader, and that's kind of where we'll start with. We'll get to that because that was a record-setting performance by Jared Goff, who was perfect. The most prolific, perfect performance from a quarterback in NFL history in any single game. We'll discuss that, but first, let's get the Horn headlines. My man Patrick Davis. So let's get updated, let's get educated, and let's get informed with all the top stories of the day with Patrick Davis and the Horn headlines.
All right, your Horn headlines brought to you by Top Gun Rentals and Lawn Equipment. The MLB playoffs begin today with the 4 wildcard series, starting with the Astros taking on the Tigers at 1:30. Framber Valdez will take them out for the Astros, taking on Tariq Skubal, who is the likely AL Cy Young winner for the Tigers. Also today, the Royals take on the Orioles, the Mets face the Brewers, and the Braves play the Padres. In the NFL, the Titans picked up their first win of the season over the Dolphins, 31-12, with Mason Rudolph coming in for an injured Will Levis in the first quarter. And the Lions handed the Seahawks their first loss in a 42-29 win, with Jared Goff going perfect, 18 for 18 on pass attempts for 292 yards and 2 touchdowns. That is your Horn headlines.
All right, thank you, Patrick, for the Horn headlines. Yeah, I'm expecting if Jared Goff was really cool, but I don't know if he's this cool. And he would post a meme or a GIF of Mr. Perfect, the wrestler. And him spitting his gum out and slapping it. You know what I mean? Like that. If Jerry, I don't know if Jared Goff is that cool, but he was a cool customer last night. I mean, that's amazing. To go 18 of 18 as a team, they went 19 of 19 actually.
Yes.
Because Amon-Ra St. Brown threw back. So as a team, we've never seen that before. This is actually history being made because I think Kurt Warner. He finished a game 10 of 10 passing.
Yes.
So that was the most perfect performance prior to last night's 18 of 18 by any quarterback in any single game by Jared Goff. He had 292, almost 300 yards passing, 2 touchdowns. And honestly, the fact that he did it against a Mike McDonald defense, that's one of the best defenses in the league. It'd be different. I got to go see who Kurt Warner did it up against and how good that defense was. That Seattle Seahawks defense, that's a good defense. Like that's not some trash defense or anything like that. So it was even more impressive considering the opponent you went up against because Mike McDonald's one of the better young defensive minds in football. That's why he got that head coaching job with Seattle. And I'll even throw it out there on the other side. Hell, man, Geno Smith had a damn good game. I don't know which one. I mean, obviously, Jared Goff, that's record-setting. That's historic. Man, but Geno Smith, 38 of 56, 395 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 reception. He wasn't bad either. That was like some nice showcase of, 2 quarterbacks playing at a really high level right now. But it's amazing. And how about this? Even more so, for Jared Goff to go 18 of 18, and Jahmyr Gibbs, he had 0 targets in that game. He had 0. They didn't even use him as a target. He's usually one of the best receiving running backs in the league as a weapon. They didn't even use him. So they're not even fully that offense even fully realized really right now. Matter of fact, Jahmyr Gibbs has gone 2 back-to-back games without targets at all. So now they're using him mostly as a runner. Like he's actually asserting himself as a runner. Last year, he was more of a guy that could hurt you either way as a receiver or as a runner, but he wasn't as mature running in between the tackles with some of these, gap and power schemes they're running. But now he had 14 for 78. David Montgomery had 12 for 40. Seemed like they're transitioning to him being more of their every down back. Even though, yes, I think they're going to use him situationally in the passing game. They're not going to, obviously, you don't discard that kind of weapon in the passing game, but it seems like they're using him now more as a runner. And that offense is clicking. 42 points against Seattle, but you don't score that many points when your quarterback is perfect, Mr. Perfect. So Jared Goff, man, his story is truly amazing. And honestly, it reminded me of, like, Geno Smith is the same way. Like, we expect these guys to be stopgaps. Everybody expects him to be bridge quarterbacks. Baker Mayfield's doing it right now, too. Baker Mayfield's changing Tampa Bay's mind about what he was capable of with that organization. Yeah. They're thinking, you know what, this guy he might have to transition to a franchise role for at least as long as we can keep him playing at this high level. We all thought it was a Dave Canales thing, and Dave Canales worked really well with young quarterbacks, and we've seen that even with Geno Smith this time. But maybe it is as simple as, Baker Mayfield. It's just a circuitous route, if you will, for some of these QBs to become franchise quarterbacks. Certainly the case for Jared Goff. Certainly the case, Geno Smith is not necessarily, I don't know if people consider him a franchise, but right now for that team, he is. And Baker Mayfield, I think he's making them reconsider whether he should get the franchise quarterback tag again, or whether he's a stopgap or a bridge quarterback, because he's playing way better than a stopgap or a bridge quarterback. So I think more and more you're going to start to help. Sam Darnold is, and now Sam Darnold is not there. Obviously, they got a quarterback of the future. That's why they drafted J.J. McCarthy. But we've never seen Sam Darnold play this well at this point. We're just seeing more stories where quarterbacks seem to just have these very, very late, very late developmental ceilings where they just seem to, whether it's because of the circumstances they're in, or because of maybe they were in the wrong offense, or maybe like Baker, they dealt with a lot of offensive coordinators and play callers, and they were pretty much kind of discarded by different teams. Maybe they're in the right situation now. Not sure, but you see a late career blooming for these guys. They kind of bloom a little bit later in their careers, and we're not used to that because we're used to giving up on quarterbacks early. If they don't show a promise early, they're considered a bust, and then you move on, which happened to, I'm sure, these guys, right? Happened to Geno Smith, happened to Goff, happened to Baker Mayfield, happened to Sam Darnold. And now it seems like there is a new belief that you can resuscitate some of these quarterbacks' skill sets and their careers in the right system, with the right play caller, with the right environment. And we're certainly seeing now multiple examples of it across the league in different ways.
Yeah. I think there's the thought on coaching has changed a lot. Of the old school way of coaching is, this is the way it is. This is the system we run. This is what we do. Let's find a guy that fits into my system, and my system works. And now more and more it is about, you're replaceable, the player's not. So you have to make a system that works for this quarterback. And the coaches that are continuing to get work and moving up the ladder are the guys who can make guys work and find a Geno Smith and say, well, they were trying to put him in a system that doesn't work for Geno Smith. So we have to find something that works for him. For Jared Goff, it kind of worked with Sean McVay, but he never really figured out that system. So he could implement it, and he could do it if you walked him through it, but it was never really his thing. And clearly now in Detroit, they found his thing. So I think you've just seen more and more. Mike McDaniel with Tua is an example of, Tua was done in Miami. Everybody thought he was going to be a bust. And then Mike McDaniel came in and he made him step up because Mike McDaniel walked in and changed it. We hear it with Sark when he talks about playing Quinn and Arch and basically saying, it's all the same playbook, but we call two very different games for the two quarterbacks. as opposed to I call the game, you go out there and implement it, which is more the old school style of coaching that we saw a lot more of, where it was, you were supposed to be able to fall into it. And that was more of guys like Josh McDaniels, who didn't work out. He was a coach that says, I want to get a quarterback. I'll get Jimmy Garoppolo. He can do what I want to do. And then we can see Derek Carr has been able to succeed in other play. I mean, the last 2 weeks has not been the same, but he's had more success elsewhere because someone went and tried to coach to his strengths. So you have to be able to find coaches that want to coach their strengths, but it's because I think the money's changed so much that it used to be you could replace a quarterback, and they thought, well, there's probably only 20 good coaches and there's like 40 good quarterbacks, so we'll find a quarterback. And now everybody realizes there's like 15 good quarterbacks and a plethora of good young coaches. So it's much easier to try and find that coach, and it's a couple $1,000,000 or a couple $100,000 to go find a new offensive coordinator versus $30 million to go find a new quarterback.
Yep, I think there's some of that. I think it's also, the old Bill Walsh quote, very few people can coach the quarterback position, even fewer can evaluate them.
Yep.
I think there are a few made men in the NFL who know how to evaluate quarterbacks and that know how to develop them. And there aren't many of these guys. And I think they're the ones who are starting to really separate in the league, like these guys who actually know. And like you said, the guys who are stubborn about it, I think they're going to fall by the wayside. And the coaches who are actually knowledgeable and who actually do have a system in place or a blueprint for how to maximize a quarterback skill set, those are the guys who they get to be head coaches, right? Dave Canales, that's why he's got to be head coach. That's why Kevin O'Connell now is getting a lot of love as the Vikings head coach. He's been able to do that with multiple quarterbacks right now, right? You've seen him now with multiple QBs, be able to get the best out of them. You get the reputation for being a made man that way. Shannon's like that, right? Shannon's got a reputation for getting the best out of quarterbacks. He's a little bit of both. Shannon's a little bit of both. He's a stubborn old school guy that wants his type of QB, but also his system. He understands how to bring out the best in the QB because it's really about compatibility, but you have to be malleable as a coach. All right, I always say choosing a quarterback is like choosing a significant other. The woman you marry, not the hottest woman you ever dated, but the one that was right for you. And I think, that compatibility, finding that compatibility with the quarterback. And I'm saying it could be different things within their skill set. I think even with a young rookie, right? Cliff Kingsbury just changed his system drastically to fit Jaden Daniels. And Jaden Daniels is having one of the greatest rookie seasons we've ever seen. But that is not your traditional air raid in a lot of respects. He's tweaked it and tinkered with it, and to make it as QB friendly or as Jaden Daniels friendly as possible. To Patrick's point, so it's a little bit of both. But I think now we are seeing more progressive, more progressive ethos, a more progressive mindset, ideology about quarterback. Period. That these guys are not lost causes because they didn't work initially in one system with one coach or with one team. Like there's a reason they were evaluated and drafted where they were, drafted highly, and at one point seemed to be a prospect that was capable of being a franchise quarterback. Now, not all of them are. I'm saying there's some guys who are just, hey, there's a misevaluation, or maybe they are a bust, but not all of them are. And we were very quick to write off a lot of quarterbacks. Guys are bust. I don't even know why we wrote off guys like Jared Goff and Baker Mayfield. They won playoff games. And we were like, guys, this guy can't win. He's like, they won playoff games. So they've clearly shown they can play in this league and win. And then they went to systems, and maybe, a lot of it's maturity on their part too. That's a big part of it. There's no question that these guys on themselves, they're also growing and maturing as men and as quarterbacks. And so now a Baker Mayfield now very different than the Baker Mayfield that came into the NFL with the chip on his shoulder, having all of these beefs with reporters and talking, negatively about his own teammates and all of the beef he had in the locker room with coaches. You don't hear that Baker anymore. Baker now is fun loving. He's cracking jokes with reporters. He's cracking jokes with the media. He's reportedly a great teammate. Everybody loves him. He did have this little exchange with Tom Brady about.
Yes.
We'll get to that later. I don't know what that was about. We'll get to that. Him and Tom Brady apparently had a disagreement, if you will. And I kind of take Tom Brady's side in this, not gonna lie. But Baker he's a different person now. Like, he has changed. And I think that's also part of me. Jared Goff didn't even know the sun rose in the east and set in the west when he first got to the damn Rams, right? He didn't even they little. I'm not making it up. He was like a bimbo. He was like a male bimbo. And now you see him and you're like, oh man, that dude's a leader of men. Also, so I think a big part of it is these guys also maturing. I think you find that perfect storm of circumstances for a team, and when they are in the right situation, the right offense, and magic is happening. And you just see it. It's happening with Geno Smith. It's happening with Jared Goff. It's happening with Baker Mayfield as well. It's happening with Sam Darnold too. There's some, there's some special. I think there's some really special cases that we should pay more attention to. That show us that some, and Tua. I think you're right about Tua. Unfortunately, the injury. But that would take us to the Miami game. They still haven't led.
I do want to point out still that Jared Goff trade. If you want to talk about what a steal it was for the Lions to end up getting not only their franchise quarterback that was supposed to be a guy that was the reason why they had to get all these picks thrown in, was look, you have to take a salary. We can't keep a salary, but you just take this salary and we'll give you 2 first-round picks and a third. So some of the players that got out of that trade, via other trades, Jahmyr Gibbs, Sam Laporta, and Jameson Williams were all got because of that trade.
Yeah.
That's a haul right there. Amazing. A franchise quarterback, a franchise tight end, a franchise running back, and a franchise wide receiver.
It's amazing. It really is. No, that's nothing we don't talk enough about too. I mean, Brad Holmes, the GM, he has been fantastic.
Yeah,
like talent evaluations, he has been amazing. Dan Campbell's been great with the culture, and they've improved the schemes. I mean, we can talk about Ben Johnson. He's got one of the best offensive minds in the football, and one of those those made men, those quarterback gurus. He's proven, hey, I can be that guy. Look what I did with Jared Goff. But how about this? Damn near 22% of Lions draft picks have been Pro Bowlers since Brad Holmes became the GM. Think about that. Damn, 22%. So basically, just 22% of the draft picks he's had, they've been Pro Bowlers. That's a remarkable hit rate, and it's So they've kind of, this is the perfect confluence of talent, of Dan Campbell, the culture, the talent. I think Ben Johnson brings that special scheme. Defensively, they're getting better, but and then the personnel and the evaluation, I would say, and they were all, I would say that for all of them, Jared Goff too, Brad Holmes, right? When they gave him that job, nobody knew who Brad Holmes was. Everybody thought, oh, the Lions are making another terrible decision, putting somebody in charge of evaluations and somebody in charge of their front office that nobody knows. That ended up being a grand slam home run. The Dan Campbell hire, remember, we all thought, oh, that might be a disaster. This guy's talking about eating kneecaps, and oh man, he's joking that they hired the wrong Campbell. Guy might be a little bit of a clown. Turns out he might be a clown, but he's perfect for that circus.
Yep,
perfect for that circus. And then Jared Goff, another guy that we kind of wrote off. Oh man, this guy Jared Goff, he's a quarterback that can only take you so far. He's limited as a quarterback, which he may be, but I don't know if we've reached his limit yet as a QB. So they have all these kind of castaways and these kind of discarded people, these pieces that people kind of counted out, and they do have that going for their culture too, because it's Detroit as well too, right? I was a Detroit Lion. Trust me, it is not a very proud history that the Detroit Lions have in terms of what they've accomplished with their football team, and now they have the best football team they've had in 60 years?
Yeah.
Something like that.
I mean, since the Bobby Lane curse, the curse of Bobby Lane?
Yeah. So I'm probably got to go back further to that. Yeah. I mean, it's pretty amazing. It really is an amazing story. Okay. Let's get to the Miami Dolphins real quickly. Well, Tennessee Titans getting their first win. I'm not sure if that's a bigger story, as if I don't know if that's the big story, or if the Miami Dolphins and their underachievement is the big story here. And of course, Tua being out. And we all assumed, and I did too, that Mike McDaniel was one of these guys that also was able to, get kind of maximize a quarterback skill set, get the best out of a quarterback. Maybe he just doesn't have the quarterbacks right now available to be able to do that. But man, the Miami Dolphins, they look lackluster. I mean, you go look at it, they entered the fourth quarter. So basically, Miami rolled out his third different starting quarterback in 4 games. So that's a disaster for him. And they haven't led, guys, the entire season in 1 game. They haven't led at all. Because remember, they were the only teams that hadn't led going into this week. They hadn't led the entire season, and that still is the case. Yeah, that's about as bad as it can get that you haven't led a football game so far this season.
No.
And then you roll out your third starting quarterback, and we have no timetable. And I don't even know if we should have a timetable on when Tua would return or should return. But remember, they were struggling with Tua though. They were struggling a little bit with Tua. But obviously, everybody assumed that if Tua was at the helm, that offense would break through at one point. But man, they gained just 7 yards as a team in the third quarter. Like it's getting ugly.
Yeah, that
in Miami.
Tyler Huntley's average yards per pass is 4.4 yards. It's not great for a passing game.
Yeah,
he's also your leading rusher at 40 yards. It was just nothing was working.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I don't know what they do going forward. I actually don't know what their short-term and long-term plan is because they don't know what Tua's status and health is. So I don't know if you can make plans. If I'm the Dolphins, I move on from Tua. And if I'm Mike McDaniels, I push that now because if not, Mike McDaniels is going to get stuck in his purgatory.
Yeah,
and then he's going to be out when they decide to go with a new quarterback and a new plan, a new regime. He won't be a part of the new plan. That's what I'm talking about. And exactly. I think he should be aggressive in saying, "Hey guys, we got to move him to it. We need to pay him, give him his guaranteed money, and say, hey man, we'll release you, and then you can go either play for someone else, or you can decide to retire, whatever is best for you." Because the Dolphins can't stay in this purgatory, man. This is crazy. That's as a franchise that you could argue that's worse than quarterback hell. Because quarterback hell, you're gonna be so bad, it guarantees you a spot. You go draft somebody else. In this purgatory, I don't even know if they're bad. Would they even draft another quarterback?
I mean, because you have, part of the problem is that they had to get rid of some players because their cap space and they didn't want to spend the money. So it came out that they got rid of some guys, and you're not keeping offensive linemen, you're not keeping defensive. So it just kind of took over a little bit, that it felt like they were going to be a little bit of a downturn, and then the Tua injury really just set them off. Because the team's built. I mean, you talk about paying Jalen Waddle. You pay Jalen Waddle because of his connection with Tua. And I mean, it's not saying he's a bad wide receiver. We just know he's a better wide receiver with Tua than with anybody else because they have a connection. And so you pay him. And then the guy he has a connection with goes away, and he becomes a little bit less effective in not being able to get downfield and get the ball. And Tyler Huntley, I like him as a quarterback. I thought he did well for the Ravens a few years ago. He basically had a week to get ready for this game, so maybe he could get better. Maybe they feel that he'll be a guy that can get better in a couple of weeks if they give him a little bit more time. But I'm with you. I don't think it's a stopgap at best. And then you got to figure out what you do. And it's hard to know because so many of these guys in the NFL and some of these other guys kind of downplay CTE so much and downplay so much of that you don't know if there's guys in that organization that are downplaying it and go, "Tua will be fine. He's fine. I talked to him. He's fine." And they don't necessarily take the full impact of it on. And so they will say, "No, he'll be fine. It was just it was an unfortunate play, but he'll be back and he can come back and play. We paid him. We're going to keep him." I don't know who they've got in that organization because you see that kind of stuff happen more, and like people kind of step away from the science of it and just pretend everything will be okay.
Yeah,
but I think that's all.
Yeah.
If you're Mike McDaniel, I'm with you. I think you have to say, if I want to keep my job, I have to get another quarterback. Because
I think they do.
I cannot really keep trying to do this and beat my head into a wall.
Because it's the chance of it happening again are pretty high. I mean, it's gonna unfortunately, if he continues to be their franchise quarterback, he's gonna get another concussion. It's just I feel bad about even saying that, but it seems highly likely that it will happen again.
I mean, I don't know. I mean,
unless he's just untouched, because he's more susceptible than others because of his history.
No, and I mean, especially we know older quarterbacks, they're even if they're not bad, you get little ones and you get hit and then a little slow to get up, and then you're able to get through and you pass concussion protocol and you get back out there and you throw. For Tua, if he gets that one that's a little one, it's a big one. They're all big ones now.
Yeah, for him. And honestly, I think the other alternative would be go get you a stud backup. Like, you should have the highest paid backup in the league. You go find the best backup in the league. I don't know who's got the best backup in the league right now. Like you need
I know
that.
who's
You
got
need
one of the most
basically
expensive.
well, third string. They got an expensive third string quarterback. The Cowboys do. But yeah, I mean, they need to go. I think that's heavily invest in your backup. Like, go find help. Matter of fact, when I don't know when Sam Darnold's done with when JJ McCarthy gets a starting job or something, maybe you need to invest in Sam Darnold. Say, hey man, we'll pay you basically, starter money almost, but we need you to be our backup because
Yeah.
we're gonna, you're gonna play. That's another way to go about it. You could do that. That doesn't seem cost efficient as an organization, but that's the way to do it if you want to continue to pursue Tua as your starting franchise quarterback. I would, if I'm Mike McDaniel, I'll think about not forcing, but compelling the organization to move on, and for Tua's sake too, because Tua needs to have that. He needs to think about it too. Like, hey, do you still want to play this game? Because Miami Dolphins, they're gonna be in purgatory as long as he's a starting quarterback, because he could go down at any time.
Yeah.
And then your season is
No, and I mean, you're already not having, like you said earlier, it wasn't like Tua was dominating and looked great, and then he went down. It just feels like they're a couple pieces short right now. Devin Achane had probably his worst game of the season, so they're not even able to run the ball right now.
No.
He had 10 carries for 15 yards.
Yeah, simple stuff seems tough for them right now, because they just don't have they that unique element that Mike McDaniel's offense used to have, where you can maximize the speed. They just don't have it right now with who's playing quarterback. So we'll see what Miami decides to do, but looks like Miami's going to be, at least while their quarterback situation is still uncertain, they're going to be a bottom dweller in this league.
Yeah.
So they're not going to be a factor at all. The Tennessee Titans won't be a factor either, but their quarterback also went down, but they got a better over. And this thing too, there are teams that are quarterbacks going down and they're doing it with backup quarterbacks. So Minnesota, the best story potentially in the league, they're doing it with a backup quarterback. So you can win in this league with a backup quarterback. The fact that Miami looks totally inept and incompetent without their starting quarterback, that is a concern. Because that is, like you said, that's an organizational thing. You shouldn't look that bad, and they look.
No,
really,
you should be able to
bad.
get 200 yards of offense.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Right. The simple things look really difficult for them. All right. Speaking of simple things, the Longhorns are trying to get back to the basics this bye week, because they don't have an opponent, but they'll be trying to improve on some of the things that they saw in that Mississippi State game. So we'll hear from Steve Sarkisian and what he thought about their performance versus Mississippi State and on the team in their bye week after a 5-0 start. All of that and more when we return right here on the Rodcast featuring Patrick Davis. I'm Lifetime Longhorn Rod Davis coming back on the Horn. Hey, what's up, folks? Lifetime Longhorn Rod Davis here. Let me tell you about my friend and your friend, Dr. Greg Eckert. Him and his team, folks, they are fantastic. They are one of the best groups that I've ever been around in terms of your going to, whether you're dental health and your dental hygiene, they got you taken care of. Doesn't matter what the concern is. I originally went there for a routine checkup just to get my teeth cleaned and to get a checkup. And the checkup was so thorough. In fact, they found that there was something potentially amiss. My wisdom teeth, actually, all of them were growing in sideways. I was on the verge of a disastrous situation, but no need to worry because they acted quickly. They made sure that I was informed and educated about the entire process and the procedure, made sure I was comfortable with it as well. Got the procedure scheduled, had everything done. I was back at work within a couple of days, and my dental health and dental hygiene have never been better, thanks to Dr. Eckert and his wonderful team. Now, hopefully for you, it's not as serious as having all your wisdom teeth extracted, but if it is, you're in great hands with Dr. Eckert and his team. But if it's just routine cleaning or a checkup, or if it's any general dentistry or teeth whitening, dentures, porcelain crowns, veneers, dental implants, full mouth reconstruction, even root canal therapy, whatever it takes to ensure you're getting the best quality dental care available, that's what Dr. Eckert and his team are all about. And right now, because they're always on the cutting edge of the technological advances in general dentistry, right now they have the ability to give you a brand new smile in just one day, permanently secured to your dental implants. No time spent without teeth. You'll get temporary fixtures until they can complete your permanent smile, and you're going to smile again with confidence and eat freely without pain or discomfort. So we're talking about a lifelike permanent solution. So if you have dentures, or you've been told you need dentures, or if you've been told that you have to have all your teeth replaced, call Dr. Ecker today to learn about this revolutionary alternative to dentures. It's a brand new smile in just one day. Trust me, folks, it sounds too good to be true. It's not. It's just Dr. U. It's a complimentary consultation, so you got nothing to lose but so much to gain, because a confident smile will truly change your life. And Dr. U wants to change your life for the better. He did it for me. He can do it for you. 512-345-3166. 512-345-3166. And if you go over there right now, you tell them that you heard it from the horn. Our friend Dr. Ecker will give you free Zoom whitening with any treatment at Dr. Ecker's office. How about that? So go to drueckert.com, drueckert.com. All right, welcome back to the Rodcast. Time to get into some Texas football conversation. Longhorns are into the bye week, and nothing better than going into the bye week after a win, even if the win was not up to your standard. Hey, it's better than going into the bye week with a loss, which Texas has done before. Let's hear from Steve Sarkisian talking about the bye week and what the protocol for Texas is going to be during the bye week. Here is the head coach of the Texas Longhorns.
Yeah, so today we did our typical Monday meetings to recap the game, position meetings, team meeting, offense, defensive meetings, goals, players of the games, things of that nature. And then they just lifted today. We did not practice. We didn't walk through. We'll practice tomorrow, which would be more of our typical Monday practice. We'll introduce OU. We'll get into the scouting report, some initial thoughts and game plan. And then we'll practice. Our normal Tuesday would be a Wednesday, and our normal Wednesday will be Thursday. So we'll get the meat and potatoes of the game plan kind of in this week. And then the guys will have a lift Friday morning, and then they'll be off. We won't practice Friday, Saturday, or Sunday. I want them to go be with their families. I want them to kind of get refreshed mentally, physically, emotionally. And then we'll come back Monday, and we'll get back to it and have a normal work week to get ready for the ball game.
And obviously there are some guys who have injuries who are nicked up, and this is a big week for them, especially at that running back position. You got a couple of safeties that have missed some time. Here's start talking about just recovering in the bye week physically.
the first one we were talking about the mental side of it, right? I do think like I'm as concerned as anybody for the duration of this season. You know, the fact that we started a week earlier for training camp, the fact that we played our first game in August, and we're hoping to play January 20th. That's a long haul for a student athlete, you know, who's going to school, who's 18, 19 years old, and the toll that it can take. And I think that we need to keep it fresh for them, because I do think the mental intensity we have to have week in and week out is going to be really important. And so, it's going to be kind of an intensified mental approach to what we're trying to do schematically, but then it's back off them and let them relax a little bit. And I think that that's going to be important so that when we come back next week, we can really go.
Here's Sark. Of course, when they come back next week, Quinn is expected to take the reins as starting quarterback for the Longhorns after Arch Manning got his couple of starts while Quinn recovered from the abdominal strain. Here's Sark talking about getting Quinn ready to play coming back versus Oklahoma.
Yeah, I mean, he's just rehabbing as he has been. I think he's been making steady progress, one day to the next, which is a good sign. We haven't had any setbacks. It's been steady progress. I think he's getting stronger and more comfortable and more confident. And so we'll just kind of stay the course with that. OU's defense, I think, a couple things stand out to me is their ability to get to the quarterback. And we just talked about pass protection, but they're one of the country's leaders, nation's leaders in sacking the quarterback. Then they do a great job of creating turnovers. And those are both things that are kind of staples of Brent Venables' defenses, right? Very attacking, really schematic. They've got all the schematics, and he's not afraid to call it and do it different from one week to the next. And so I think that attacking style of getting to the quarterback, creating turnovers there's the two main things that really jump out to me.
And he's going to have to be, a lot, a whole lot more creative and a lot more aggressive in this game versus Texas, because his defense has got to pick up the slack for the offense, because the offense is going through a lot of issues. Quarterback change, injuries at wide receiver. Top 5 starting receivers were out for that last game. They still found a way to win it, but they did it because of defense. We'll talk more about that, of course. Let's hear from Sark talking about Quinn and getting, Quinn in a rhythm early on. That's his. I mean, it's because he's coming off, basically it'll be 3 weeks. I don't know if he had complete rest because he's practicing, but it'll be 3 weeks since he last played. And getting Quinn into a rhythm, at least in practice, that's the number one guy taking those reps. But this is a third-year starting quarterback. I don't expect that to be an issue, but here's Sark talking about it.
Yeah, no, I think it starts right when they get injured. We always look to every player, but most notably the quarterback. When he gets injured, we want to pull him in even tighter. We want to pull him in even closer, and so, when we're at practice, Quinn is engaged. He's in every meeting. He's talking about the game plan. Friday night before we go through the call sheet with the quarterbacks, he's talking through different things. On Saturday, he's wearing the earpiece. So we keep him engaged on that front. And then throughout the week, I'm really trying to assess the things that I think he's most comfortable with. Various injuries, right, along the way, different types of injuries. And so, okay, what does it look like he's most comfortable with? And if he's going to play, I've already kind of listed out 10, 15, maybe 20 things that I think he feels really good about. And we'll probably go in that direction if he were to play, so that he's running stuff that he's had some success with throughout the week, as opposed to saying, this looks like a great play design, it should work, but either he didn't rep it because of limited reps during the week, or when he did get that rep, it didn't look so good. The stubborn me would still call that play. The guy that tries to step back and try to put his players in the best position to be successful goes to his bucket of the stuff that I thought he did well throughout the week.
Mm-hmm. You know what he's describing right there? Coach Steven and Sark. Yep. See, that's stubborn me. That's Coach Steven. And then the more reasonable, play caller who considers all those variables he just talked about and goes to that bucket of more proven concepts. And, he's talking about the difference. He knows the difference between Coach Steven and Sark. I guarantee if I made a joke to Coach Sark about Coach Steven, he would get the joke. I would get
Yeah.
a smirk. I don't know if I get a laugh. I'd get a smirk from him. All right, let's hear from Sark. We don't want to hear from Coach Steven. Let's hear from Sark. Actually, comparing the two quarterbacks. This is actually something I want to hear him break down the difference between Quinn and Arch playing in the same system but different skill sets.
I don't really compare and contrast as much like that. We haven't looked at it that way. We looked at the efficiency of which we've operated within the specific schemes that we've called, and then also how we've just operated totality as an offensive unit. Like Saturday, and I'd love to play the shoulda, coulda, woulda game, but eliminate these 8 penalties, right? Eliminate the fumble in the red area, eliminate the drop touchdown pass, eliminate the coach taking 3 points off the board. You're probably looking at a 56-point game somewhere in there, right? You're probably looking at 3 more touchdowns somewhere in there in some capacity. And that's been kind of the norm at home. For whatever reason, we had these mishaps, right? A fumble in the red area, the fumble first play of the second half, a drop touchdown, the 8 penalties, me taking 3 points off the board. We had these things come up that next thing you know, you score 35 and it's like, well, what happened? No, this is what happened. Here's exactly what happened. Now, how are we going to fix it? So I don't know if it's necessarily the quarterback, right, that is responsible for those things, but it's like anything. The quarterback always gets more credit when things go well, and the quarterback probably gets a little bit more of the blame, or he's not leading the team as good when things don't go well. When in reality, none of those things had anything to do with Arch, right? He can't run the ball. He can't catch it. He can't block. He can't stay on sides. He had his own issues that as I was quoted and saying on TV, ripping his ass for, right? But that's our job as coaches, is to try to push these guys to go be the best. And so I haven't really looked at it that way. I look at it like, man, we've got 2 really capable players at the position. We're extremely fortunate. They've got great rapport with one another. And I couldn't ask for more to have a 3rd-year starter at quarterback for us and getting healthy and ready to come back, as well as having a backup who now has gotten an immense amount of experience that we may have to lean into again later in the season.
Speaking of that experience, what are they still working on with Arch after his performance, throwing for over 300 yards and only having 5 incompletions? What are you going back to the drawing board with Arch and trying to work on? Here's Sark.
Arch, just the nuances, I'm on him on the little things. I got on him about something that maybe be trivial, maybe not. Well, the first quarterback sneak we call with him in the game, I think he scores. And I think the officials actually think he scores, but he gets up and gets out of the end zone. So by the time they got there, they couldn't tell if he was in the scrum or not, where he was on the field. So I tried to explain it to him on the headset, the beauty of the headset. He almost did the same thing again. And oddly enough, when the play was done, the official came to me and said, hey, remind Arch to stay on the ground so we can see where he's at. So there's little things like that, right? And so sometimes it's not always the read or a poor throw or something. There's little things that we're trying to coach him on that's just experience.
Oh, I love that. That's a small thing. I was like, never would have thought about it. Never would have thought about something like that, but it makes perfect sense. Like, no, dude, you got to stay there so they can clarify whether you were in the end zone or not. You got up and they're like, well, I think he was, but I have no proof. So they're not in. I love it. And that's why he's getting coached hard. And that's why the Mannings wanted him at Texas, period. Stuff like that. That even when he's having a great game, Sark is constantly on him. Hey, details. All right. So there you go. Good stuff there from Steve Sarkisian. We'll come back. We got topic for the big fat poll today. And we got your musically themed day of the week. All that and more when we return right here on the Rodcast featuring Patrick Davis. I'm Lifetime the Horn. Rod Davis coming back on the Horn.
Back here on the horn on the Rodcast on a Tuesday morning, and that means it's a top of the charts Tuesday where I'll play you music that was number one on this day in history. Let's get to the big fat poll of the day. Text line is open 512-447-3776, and we'll get this posted up on X at the Horn ATX.
Patrick's big fat poll of the day on the Horn.
Big fat poll of the day today. We talked about it a little bit yesterday, but after we've gotten through 4 weeks, which NFL team is the biggest surprise so far this season? Which team is the biggest surprise so far this season? Let me know, Rod, if you think these are the four that would be the most surprising to you.
Okay.
The Vikings 4-0. Got to be in there, right?
Mm-hmm.
Commanders 3-1.
Yep.
The Bengals 1-3. And the Steelers 3-1.
Steelers 3-1. I'm gonna say the least surprising because I always said Tomlin's a hell of a coach, and people keep telling me Tomlin's trash. Get him out. I'm like, Tomlin is such a good coach, guys. If you get him a quarterback, this dude would easily be in the Super Bowl in a Super Bowl conversation. Like I really do believe that, but I don't think he has a quarterback. Not even with Justin Fields, he's not. And people say, what about Ben Roethlisberger? Toward the end of Ben's career, I think he was, kind of past his prime, and I don't know if he could channel that elite aspect of his game anymore. I just don't know if he could do that. But I do think, with a good quarterback, he's a decent one, like he has with Justin Fields. I don't know if you consider him decent or not. He can win in that division, by the way. It's one of the toughest divisions in football. So I'm not surprised by that one. I just think Tomlin's a hell of a coach. The rest of the three, I think those are the three biggest surprises in my opinion. Maybe the Saints aren't anymore. They probably were at the start of the season.
They were, but they're 2-2 now. So
kind of falling back to their expectations, I guess, for the Saints. But I'm with you. I like that group. Honestly, I think, one of the biggest surprises. I'm with you. I mean, I think Washington and Minnesota are in the same. To me, just because of Jaden Daniels' play, like they are similarly. In my opinion, very surprising. I think those are two biggest surprise stories of the NFL season so far. And I don't think Minnesota, just because they're undefeated, is more surprising than Washington, because you got to think about Washington as an organization, what kind of dumpster fire they were, what kind of fuster cluck of a franchise they were. Minnesota's been a pretty stable franchise for a while. I mean, they've been able to win with different quarterbacks there. Just had Kirk Cousins there. Kevin O'Connell's proved to be a pretty good coach. I mean, they've had some stability there. They're a functional franchise. The Washington team has been dysfunctional for forever. Leadership, coaching, players. I mean, at every level. And in one season, it shows you if you get the quarterback position right, that's all it takes. You can almost turn everything else in your organization around almost instantaneously. Feels like overnight in just one season. Texans experience this too if you get the quarterback position right. People will look at everything else differently. We're still starting to see D'Amico Ryan's flaws as a coach. We didn't even see him at first. Yeah. We were too blinded by how great CJ Stroud was. We couldn't be like, man, D'Amico Ryan's amazing too. Like, D'Amico Ryan's is good, but that team's got some issues, right? Yeah. And now you're starting to see it because we're no longer blinded by how great CJ Stroud was. Jaden Daniels is doing the same thing right now. Like he is having right now the best season for a rookie quarterback ever in his first 4 games. We haven't seen a rookie play this well. And I was just saying that about CJ Stroud last year.
No, I'm telling you, it's a number 2 pick in the draft.
You're right. Both of them. Yeah, you're right about that. Good point. So to me, I think that Minnesota and Washington are on the same level of surprise to me. I think that Washington, I'll give you some numbers about it, but that is a mind-blowing reinvention process happening there in Washington. So that's a good question.
Yeah, no, I'm curious what people will think too, because Minnesota, I get they've been stable, but to go with Sam Darnold, who
it is
pretty much everybody thought was, and then they've been putting up numbers. It's not just that they're winning, and I know that it was a close win because they allowed 22 points in the fourth quarter, and it kind of all fell apart at the end of the game for the Vikings defense. But if you just look at what this offense has been doing, what the defense has been doing for most of the season, they've been pushing. They haven't been close. These games have not really been close. And I mean, what you can say in that, that they were up 20-something points, and they were dogs in that game. They were 2.5-point underdogs.
Yeah, they were up 28-0.
They were 28-0, and they were 2.5-point underdogs in the game.
Yeah.
That's it's because I get with Washington, it's a quick turnaround. But again, I think because I saw it with the Texans last year, and you saw, okay, they do have new ownership coming in. They have new coaches. They're basically cleaning house and starting over. It normally takes a little bit longer to go there. Now, if they end up winning the division, then they may pass the Vikings because they were able to maintain this for a long time. I'll say 4 weeks in, I'd still give it to the Vikings just because I need to see it go a little bit longer term before the cracks start to show a little bit as the season goes on. But right now, the Commanders are also, no one thought they'd be taking the lead in the NFC East. No one had that one going early.
No, man.
I mean, the main conversation was we thought, well, Caleb, his game will translate better. We don't know if Jaden Daniels' game can translate to the NFL.
Yeah, just because he was a scramble happy quarterback in college, love scramble. But he had a beautiful deep ball. Basically, he had the best deep ball. And I remember there were some people saying he was more pro ready. There were some people saying he was more pro ready than Caleb. Not you said majority were Caleb's game is going to translate better. But I remember a couple people saying, no, I'm telling you, man, you go watch film on Jaden Daniels. He's got an NFL ready game. And he's proven it. There's no question about it. So you can't go wrong with either of those choices, Minnesota or Washington. I'll agree with either of those as the most surprising stories of the season. The sad surprise, I guess, would be the Bengals. That's a sad surprise that they're 1-3.
1-3 and relatively healthy.
Yeah. Usually 1-3, you'd be like, okay, so Joe Burrow was out for a couple of games.
Yeah, Jamar Chase got hurt, Joe Burrow got hurt. You're like, no, T. Higgins missed a couple games, but
yeah. That's about it. No, I agree with you on that too. And that's a big surprise. I'm probably not as focused on that one because I just haven't paid attention to bad teams in the NFL, which the Bengals are right now. So you're right. If I looked at that one nobody would have guessed that at the beginning of the season, just like nobody would have guessed Washington in the lead in the NFC East, and nobody would have saw, Sam Darnold, as starting quarterback, will lead Minnesota to an undefeated record through 4 games. Just no way. No way. I did see there was one bet, like a pretty significant bet on Sam Darnold to win MVP at the beginning of the season. So somebody was on, maybe it was Sam Darnold's mama. I have no idea. Or, his people. But there was some guy who put a lot of money down for him to win MVP. And honestly, right now, he won't win it, but at least he's in the conversation. All right, so we'll do that. We'll come back. We'll talk about surprise teams in the NFL. It's a great topical conversation there for the topic for the big fat poll today. Then we come back. We'll also get into NFL news, notes, and nuggets. This is a problem for the Houston Texans. The Cowboys are not seriously considering trading for any piece, even at running back or D tackle. At least that's what Stephen Jones says. We'll talk about that too coming up, and we'll also dive into Roger Rant. All that and more right here on the Rodcast featuring Patrick Davis. I'm Lifetime the Horn. Rod Baker's coming back on the Horn. Welcome back to the Rodcast. It is a top of the charts Tuesday. That's when my co-host, the Idillionaire Patrick Davis, plays jams that reach the top of the Billboard charts on this day in history. So we appreciate him hooking us up with the jams for top of the charts Tuesday. We also appreciate him coming up with the topic for the big fat poll of the day, which is a topic that we'll discuss here in the first segment. We'll also get to some Cowboys news, notes, and nuggets. Also, we'll talk Texans. Got Raj Rant coming up a little bit later on. But Patrick, give the folks the topic for the big fat poll of the day.
Big fat poll of the day. Which NFL team is the biggest surprise so far this season? And the ones we gave you on there, the Vikings, Commanders, Bengals, and Steelers are the four that we put up there. If you got another one, feel free to send it in on the text line. Feel free to send it in on X if you've got another one and a good reason why you've got another surprising team this season.
It's a good question. I think, it could be either the Vikings or the Commanders. I think those are my two top choices, and we'll break down why both of those are really, really unique, cool, compelling stories so far this season. Yeah, what's the sustainability, right? What's the potential, longevity of what the Vikings are doing and the Commanders are doing? Which one has the best chance to be sustained? And I don't know, for me, that's going to be interesting because the divisions have a lot to do with that too. I mean, you got to play, a lot of games in that division. When division play starts, how tough is the NFC East? How tough is that NFC North? Green Bay, they just played Green Bay. They just beat Green Bay. Even though that Green Bay did actually show, and we'll get into a little bit that second half, they did show some cracks in that Brian Flores defense.
Yeah.
They were able to, and what they did essentially, they just went hurry up. They just went up tempo. And when you go up tempo, there's only so much disguise. There's only so much deception. There's only so many exotic looks that you can bake into a defense when you have to go to a default coverage. They're going hurry up tempo.
Yeah.
I got to go default. I can't, we're not disguising a lot of stuff. I can't make a lot of checks and audibles. We just got to go. And when you force his defense to go, they're more static. And they're less malleable. You see less movement. You see less pre-snap disguise. So that may be how you see teams attack that Minnesota defense, basically. Just have their own kind of hurry up 2-minute package where they can just increase the tempo at any point, and then you can force that Minnesota defense to have to play you straight up and have to give you static looks. That's what they did, and it worked really, really well. Nobody's really done that to Minnesota yet. Minnesota defense is still really good, and I mean, I think Jordan Love threw 3 interceptions in that game. So that's arguably, in terms of havoc plays and splash plays, I don't know if there's a better defense in the league right now than the Vikings. All right, so we'll get to that because I want to break down that a little bit in more detail. We'll talk about the Commanders and what a kind of freaky start to his career for Jaden Daniels. We'll get to that too coming up. But first, before we do any of that, let's get updated, let's get educated, let's get informed with all the top stories of the day with Patrick Davis and the Horn Headlines.
All right, your Horn Headlines brought to you by Top Gun Rentals and Lawn Equipment. The MLB playoffs begin today with the 4 wildcard series, starting with the Astros taking on the Tigers at 1:30. Framber Valdez will take the mound for the Astros, taking on Tariq Skubal, the likely AL Cy Young winner for the Tigers. Also today, the Royals take on the Orioles, the Mets face the Brewers, and the Braves play the Padres. In the NFL, the Titans picked up their first win of the season over the Dolphins, 31-12, with Mason Rudolph coming in for an injured Will Levis in the first quarter. And the Lions handed the Seahawks their first loss in a 42-29 win, with Jared Goff going a perfect 18 for 18 on pass attempts for 292 yards and 2 touchdowns. That is your Horn Headlines.
All right, thank you, Patrick, for the Horn Headlines. Let's get back to that topic for the big fat poll today. Who is the most surprising team through 4 weeks in the NFL? Here's the case that it is the Washington Commanders, and more about Jaden Daniels and the start to his career, because it is, like I said, we just had the conversation last year about the best rookie season in the history of the NFL for a rookie quarterback, because we were talking about CJ Stroud and what he did as a rookie. And it would seem that at least early on that Jaden Daniels is surpassing a lot of the accolades and achievements in his rookie season of CJ Stroud. Well, he's doing things that nobody's ever done, not just CJ Stroud's ever done, but nobody's ever done. So how about this? So Jaden Daniels, 82% completion percentage. That is the highest ever, actually, in a 4-game stretch in the NFL in its history. So in a 4-game stretch, going back to basically the merger, I guess you can go back to the Super Bowl, the AFL NFL merger. He has the highest completion percentage in any 4-game stretch in that time span. And how about this? If you go look at the highest completion percentages in a 4-game stretch in the Super Bowl era, the second and third highest, Peyton Manning in 2008. And talking about 4-game stretches here, any 4-game sample. All right. 4-game stretch, consecutive games. Peyton Manning had an 81.8% completion percentage in a consecutive 4-game stretch in 2008. Brady had 79% in 2007. If I'm not mistaken, they both won MVPs those years. Right? 07 was the year the Patriots should have won it all. If you go look at rookie records, the rookie record for completion percentage was actually Dak in 2016, 67.8%. The NFL record for completion percentage is 74%. Talking about throughout one single season. He's at 82%. I don't know how long that's sustainable, but that is that 82% completion percentage, 4 games. That's the highest completion percentage by any NFL player in a 4-game span at any point in their career since 1950. So that in itself is pretty freaky. They've had 23 scoring drives through the first 4 games, Washington has, and only 19 incomplete passes. The 1973 Rams are the only other team in the Super Bowl era that had more scoring drives than incomplete passes in the first 4 games of the season. They've only had 4 punts so far. They did have they had 16 straight scoring drives at one point, which was the longest streak by any team in the last 30 years, excluding kneel downs. Even more so, getting back to it, they have the most efficient offense right now in the NFL through the first 4 weeks of the season how about this? They have the most efficient offense since the 2007 Patriots in terms of EPA through the first 4 weeks of the season. Only the 2007 Patriots have had an offense in terms of expected points added that is more efficient than this 2024 Commanders offense. They are ahead of the 2021 Chiefs, the 2004 Colts, and the 2004 Vikings. Some of the greatest offenses in the history of the NFL, basically. That's where this Commanders offense is through the first 4 weeks. And I think the 2007 Patriots had a 2.2 EPA per drive. Washington's at 2.0. And we all remember Randy Moss and Wes Welker and Tom Brady in that 2007 Patriots offense. Right now, Jaden Daniels is leading all quarterbacks in EPA through the first 4 weeks. Matter of fact, he's got the highest EPA per dropback for any rookie since 2000. And I love this stat. It's like an underrated stat. But last week, because he's been showing off different parts of his game week to week. First 2 weeks, it was all underneath short, quick throws. So it was all short, quick game. And then they showed the deep ball off in week 3. Well, this past week, they kind of showed off his intermediate game as a quarterback. And how about this? Prior to this past week, he had completed 35 straight passes of 15 air yards or less. He went 100 minutes and 5 seconds of game clock between completions of 15 air yards or less. Crazy stuff. And their offense is, I'll give Cliff Kingsbury a lot of credit. It is really a, diverse offense in terms of the different elements of it. They're basically, how about this? On first down plays, 76%, damn near 77% of their first down plays are either runs or screens. Almost 77% of them, runs or screens. And they don't even use a lot of pre-snap motion. One of the most successful cheat codes or hacks that you can think of in modern football today, which is pre-snap motion shifts. They are 29th in the NFL. And I think a lot of it, same thing I brought up with, Arch and Sark earlier this week, and brought it up last week too, that the pre-snap motion rates decrease when you have an inexperienced quarterback in there, because you don't necessarily want the burden of them having to navigate all of the pre-snap movements and shifts and delegating where guys are supposed to be. That's a lot for a young quarterback. And when you move pieces around, the defense isn't static. If you're moving pieces, the defense has to adjust and also move pieces. Now, that's good as an indicator for a veteran quarterback because they know what they're looking at. But for a young quarterback, it can sometimes just, distort their pre-snap read and discombobulate them, give them almost too much information to process. So in order to keep the defense static, you're static, and also to ease the burden of a young quarterback, you don't give them a lot of, delegation of pre-snap movements and shift, that kind of stuff. So if you go look at that offense, they were heavy 11 personnel the first 2 weeks, like about 57%, almost 80% in 11 personnel the first 2 weeks. And then they dropped down to 45% and 44% 11 personnel in the last 2 weeks with Jaden Daniels. Now playing more 12 personnel, 1 back, 2 tight ends, playing more 13 personnel. Last 2 weeks, they're at 18 and 12%, 13 personnel with Jaden Daniels. So you can tell they're just starting to open up the offense for him too. They keep adding new stuff and adding different elements to it week by week. There's no telling where this offense is going to be by the time Jaden Daniels is, 10 games in to his rookie season, first season starting in the NFL. So that story, just because of all the random stats I just gave you, it is more than surprising. It's mind-blowing that a rookie can come into the league and have that kind of impact. They got more scoring drives than incomplete passes. That's probably the one that's most eye-popping. It's like, more scoring drives than incomplete passes? Think about how crazy, think about how efficient your offense has to be when you're operating like that. It's amazing. So to me, quarterback-wise, because of him, I'm probably leaning toward the Commanders. But then there's the Vikings. Let's talk about the Vikings for a second. Vikings, it starts with Brian Flores and that defense. It really does. That defense is, to me, one of the most opportunistic, diverse, exotic defenses in the league. And through the first 4 weeks, they lead the NFL in sacks, quarterback hits, pressures. They're tied for the lead in interceptions. They have, if you go look at it, they're tied for the lead with tackles for loss. And they have the NFL lead in pass deflections. So lead the NFL in sacks, QB hits, pressures, interceptions, tackles for loss, and pass deflections. There is not a more havoc-minded defense in the NFL. They make more splash plays than any defense in the league. And so some people look at the numbers of like Brock Purdy throwing for, what did he throw for, like 300 yards against the defense? And I want to say Jordan Love threw for 389 yards. People look at that and go, oh man, they're lighting up that Vikings defense. Why do people think it's so good? You got to go look at situations, go look at third downs. Remember they held the 49ers to like 2 of 10 on third downs. Remember the Texans were terrible on third down against that Vikings defense. They do really good situationally. And I think that's where they separate. That's why right now Brian Flores is considered one of the more creative defensive minds in the league. And it's because of what they've been able to do on critical downs, on third down, fourth down, in the red zone situationally. Yeah, remember the Texans, out of their 13, I want to say out of the 14 third downs they had, 13 of them were third and longs against the Minnesota Vikings. Like, that's where they shine. That's also an issue the Texans got to deal with. Matter of fact, the Texans faced more third and 10-plus yards to gain in that game versus Minnesota than any team since 2022. I mean, they were in no man's land half the time facing that Minnesota Vikings defense. So it's where they put, it's what the pressure they put on you situationally. And that's why Jordan Love threw 3 picks. And Jordan Love and Matt LaFleur really didn't figure out what Brian Flores was doing until the second half of the game. And in the second half, that's when they came back. But that's why they were down 28-0 in that game, because they were lost. Brian Flores had them, he had them guessing. He had them confused. And then they figured it out later on in that match in the second half. that's when he figured out, hey, I'm going to go up tempo. I'll force them into static looks, into automatic adjustments and audibles. And that's when the Green Bay Packers came back. That's going to be fun. And I think they beat Green Bay 31-29. The Green Bay, I mean, to come back in that game when they were down 28-0 in the first half, that's pretty impressive. If you go look at floor schemes, in Love in his first half, he was just 12 of 24 for 118 yards, 1 touchdown, 2 picks, and a 43 passer rating in the first half. And then they made the adjustment. So the adjustment I think a lot of teams are going to copy is they're going to go up tempo at that Vikings offense. At least they should, copying that Matt LaFleur blueprint. But Sam Darnold is the other big story. We talked about this earlier in the show. Quarterbacks who are taking a circuitous route to, obviously high achievement, to becoming potentially a franchise quarterback or even one of the better starting quarterbacks in the NFL. That's Sam Darnold right now. Nobody saw Sam Darnold doing what he's doing. And I'll be the first to say it. I'm shocked by seeing Sam Darnold right now as playing like a top 10 quarterback. He's 6th in passing yards. He's 1st in passing touchdowns. He's tied for 1st in yards per attempt. He's got a 118.9 passer rating. That's 2nd among quarterbacks, and he's 9th in EPA per dropback. He's got the most passing touchdowns in the league. Baker Mayfield's got 8. So Baker Mayfield, once again, one of those circuitous routes to him becoming a starting quarterback in the league. But, I mean, Sam Darnold right now, guys, he's got more passing touchdowns than he had in 20, 21, and 22 and 23 seasons, like the entire seasons. And this is just the first 4 weeks, all right, of this season. And I can't wait. He's going to play, and they're the only team right now that's 4-0 against the spread. And as Patrick mentioned, they've been underdogs in 3 of the 4 games. Why wouldn't they be? Sam Darnold's a starting quarterback. The only game where they were the favorite in was when they played the Giants, but every other game they've been the underdog. And they've shown up because they're 4-0. So it's the defense, I think, first, and then I think, of course, it's Sam Darnold and the way he's played. And if I'm not mistaken, I think he plays the Jets coming up too. The Vikings play the Jets, if I'm not mistaken. That's going to be fun. That's the team that drafted him. So he can come full circle in this, very, very unique story of him, obviously being discarded and teams giving up on him and everybody thinking he's a bust. And now he gets to, at the zenith of his career right now, playing as well as he's ever played, he gets to play the team that drafted him.
He does, but he has to do it in London.
God, it sucks. Damn it. He don't get to do it in front of the Jets fans.
No, he's got to do it in London.
You know what? That might help him, though. Because he psychologically, they may take him back to a bad place.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That could be, because that's pretty traumatic for him, the way his career started and, people giving up on him, thinking he was a bust. He probably had some bad experiences with the media there and with the fans. So it's probably good for him that he doesn't have to face them. He's faced the Jets, but not face the fans and the media who could get in his head. How about this? It's just the 3rd matchup of 4-0 starting quarterbacks, 4-0 or better starting quarterbacks, facing the team that drafted them. Peyton Manning did it twice. Peyton Manning faced the Colts twice, 7-0, and he was 6-0 in 2015 and 2013. Sam Darnold, first quarterback since then to be undefeated and facing his former team that drafted him, and undefeated as a starting quarterback. It just doesn't happen a lot. It's hard to be undefeated in this league, but to do it in London, I forgot all about that. Good point, Patrick. That probably doesn't have the same luster to it as it does if he has got to go back to New York and face the Jets crowd and the Jets media.
By the way, I just looked up the next 4 games for the Commanders. So they have the Ravens in there in 2 weeks. So that's fun. That'll be a tough one. They also play the Browns, Panthers, and Bears.
Oh, so they're gonna be 3-1 in the next stretch then.
So they should be 6-2 at least.
6-2.
At least 6-2. If not,
at least 6-2. If not, then who knows? They could pull off an upset and win over Baltimore. Who knows?
Look at that schedule and go, oh well, there's some wins in there.
Yeah, because they got
I forgot, and then they go the Giants after that. So throw another one in there. The Giants, they can beat the Giants too.
Got that last place schedule. That's helping. You're right. I didn't think about that. Trust me, they are a problem right now. I gotta start. We're gonna start watching them every week. I mean, I gotta start trying to catch them. And he's in the MVP conversation. Not Rookie of the Year is pretty much. I mean, it's almost wrapped up unless something happens. He gets hurt. He's gonna be Rookie of the Year.
Yeah, because he'll top out a wide receiver.
Exactly. So now people are discussing whether he's going to be in the MVP conversation. And right now, I think he is. I think he's right there in the MVP conversation. I do. You know what else is surprising? You know, we'll get into this later. Maybe we can put it into Rod's rant, I believe. We can talk Texans, Cowboys, and maybe talk a little Kansas City Chiefs in Rod's rant. The Chiefs are surprising this year too, but for a lot of they're undefeated. It's only two undefeated teams. The Vikings and the Chiefs. We just broke down why the Vikings are undefeated. The Chiefs being undefeated, though, it is also pretty impressive because they really don't have any business being undefeated. They're just they're just so clutch. Remember I brought it up yesterday. They're not good. They're just clutch now. Like they were good at the beginning of this dynasty. They're not good anymore, really. Defensively, they're one of the better teams, but as a overall team, they're not necessarily a good team anymore. They just have elite pieces, all right, in certain areas, and the most important areas: quarterback, D line, tight end, defensive coordinator, you know, head coach, and offensive play caller. So yeah, but I'm gonna give you some numbers that I don't know if they're gonna shock you or not. They probably won't shock you, but it's really surprising how the Kansas City Chiefs have managed to be 4-0. That they made the most surprising 4-0 team in a really long time. It just shows you how dangerous they are, you know, in this dynastic run, trying to get the three-peat. And the Rashee Rice, you know, injury has been confirmed. He's out for the season. That is a sad injury though, because he got hurt by Mahomes. Like Mahomes was trying to make a tackle on a turnover, and while trying to make the tackle, he, you know, basically went low and ended up diving into the knee of Rashee Rice. He didn't do it on purpose. He wasn't even really looking. He thought he was trying to take out the ball carrier, but both guys were pursuing the defender, and in pursuing pursuing the fumble, I should say, they ended up running into each other, and he basically is the reason that Rashee Rice is off for the season. It's not his fault, but he's the one that hit him. He's the one that ran into him.
I will say, if I'm Rashee Rice now too, I'm going to lawyers and everybody else, be like, hey man, we need to get this stuff settled and suspended this season. Suspend me while I'm hurt, please.
Oh yeah, good point. Yeah, he needs to get that done. That's a great point. Yeah, I mean, because they thought it was going to be at the end of the season. Now,
please suspend me at the end of the season. Don't suspend me at the beginning of next one. I don't want to miss.
You're right. I didn't even think about that. I forgot all about Rashee Rice's issues, but I guess that is a blessing in disguise for him.
If he does, but they may push it to next season, and then it'll be. But I guess he probably might miss the beginning of next. I mean, you never know with those ACLs.
He's gonna miss some. Yeah, you never know, but he'll probably miss a little bit of the start of next year too.
He'll at least miss camp.
Mm-hmm. And then they probably will say he's gonna ease himself into the role again. So yeah, I'm with you. I think he's gonna miss significant time, and that good. I mean, good news for Xavier Worthy and his role with the Chiefs. Matter of fact, Andy Reid was asked about that, so we'll give you that Andy Reid quote about Xavier Worthy on the other side in Raj Rand. We'll also talk about the issue that's facing the Texans. They got to figure this out. They don't figure this out, Texans will not be competing for a championship, and hell, winning that division is probably as far as I'm willing to pick the Texans this season if they don't fix this one issue. So we'll talk about that. Also, why the Cowboys aren't pursuing a trade for running back and D tackle, I do not know. But listen to Stephen Jones, that is certainly the case. And we'll also talk about the Kansas City Chiefs a little bit on the other side. All that and more right here on the Rodcast featuring Patrick Davis. I'm Lifetime Longhorn. Rod Davis coming back on the horn. All right, welcome back to the Rodcast. Let's talk Texans first. I've been harping on this issue for a couple of weeks, and it seems to now, I think, getting some national attention. I heard NFL Live guys talking about it as well, so at least I know I'm not going crazy. The Texans in their third downs, they're getting worse. Actually, their third and long situations are getting worse. I saw this stat, and it comes from the fantasy world. So it's a fantasy stat, but I think it actually could give us some insight into the Texans' issues. So the Texans, if you go look at their first down, first and second down, kind of early down success rates. They are one of the worst early down success rate teams in the league, which leads them to these third and long situations. Also, the penalties. They're one of the most penalized teams in the league. Also leads them to these third and long situations. In week 4 against Jacksonville, the Texans had averaged 8.7 yards to go on third down. So 8.7 yards to gain. So they basically had 3rd and 8, damn near 3rd and 9 the whole game. And that was the 4th longest average third down of the week. So not good. On the season, the Texans have the 2nd longest average for third down yards to gain in the league. They're at 9.3. Only Seattle averages a longer third down distance to gain than the Texans. That is a bad situation the Texans find themselves in. And it's mostly because, like I said, they just don't. It's their early down success rates was really low. The Texans had a 60-40 pass run ratio on early downs in week 4. So they were throwing the ball early to try to get ahead of the chain. And I think they actually had some success there, but it's still, it's a big problem. And Stroud was great on early downs. He was 10 of 13 throwing on early downs, 140 yards and a touchdown. And so that's essentially what, if you're the Texans, that's what you want. But oftentimes they'd have penalties that would put them behind the chains when they did decide to run the football, when they wanted to have some balance on those early downs. That they had a 25% success rate last week when they ran the ball on early downs. And they had a 57, damn near 58% success rate when they threw the ball on early downs. And you don't want to become that lopsided where you're throwing the ball, 70%, 75% on early downs. But I mean, that's essentially where they've had their most success. Stroud on early down, his success rate throwing the ball on early downs, 71%. His success rate throwing on early downs. So they're going to be tempted to just, just give it to CJ on early downs. But then CJ, and then maybe you can avoid the third and longs that way. That could, maybe that's the case. You could avoid the third and long situations, which I think are debilitating for the Texans, especially when your offensive line isn't playing great and you still have, issues with penalties. Your offensive linemen are often getting pre-snap penalties, holding penalties. We talked about that with Laramie Thompson, who's got, 11 penalties, the most by any player in the league, but 11 penalties in this season alone. So I just see for the Texans, they got to be more disciplined and they got to figure out a way to have more success on early downs to avoid third and long. Right now, they're close to being the team that has the longest average yards to gain on third down in the league. They're second right now, 9.3. But think about that. You're in third and long on average every third down. And third and long is the worst situation for any offense to be in. Now, granted, last year when you were in third and long, third and 10 plus yards to gain, you actually had the most completion to convert those situations. That's how good CJ Stroud was. But you can't keep putting them in that situation. If you look at percentage of set downs, this is your first and second down, basically, resulting in third and longs, and third and longest 7 plus yards to gain. The Texans are only basically their number of 29.2 is only ahead of the Giants and the Cleveland Browns, basically, in terms of percentage of set downs resulting in third and long. That's basically your early downs that result in you end up in a third and 7 plus yards to gain. Only the Browns and the Giants are worse on early downs, setting you up for third and setting you up for failure, essentially, on third and long. That's got to get that. I think that's what I said. That's to me the biggest issue with the Texans. because I think it encompasses the other issues. It encompasses the offensive line issues with protection and penalties, and it also talks about how undisciplined the team can be because they get that third and long because sometimes they're undisciplined on early downs. The run game, Patrick said that was his biggest concern was the run game for the Texans. Do they have a championship caliber run game to take some of the burden off of the young quarterback? Well, that's early downs. The early down run game will determine whether you're going to have a third and long situation or not. So to me, this third and long, if they remedy this issue, they're going to have to address. It's going to be a multifactorial solution. They got to address like 5 other things so that they can avoid being in 3rd and 9+ on average, guys. 9.3. 3rd and 9.3 is their average third down. That's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, the easy part, the easiest fix right now is if Joe Mixon can come back and be healthy. Then
that's a big fix.
That's a big piece of it right there. I mean, even if you can get Damian Pearson, he steps up and plays any better. But the fact that you have basically Cam Akers, who's a guy you brought on late, and that's the only real guy you could put out there because you got 2 rookies basically are your other 2 running backs that you're just hoping get anything for you. So once you get Joe Mixon back, that helps on that one. But the penalties are a huge piece of it because how many times we watch this season where they do pick up 5 yards on first down, and then they pick up the 5 or 6 on first down, and on second down they either get a hold or they get a false start on third down, or something happens. Or they take a sack because they're trying to throw it deep and nothing's open. And it's just there's too many of those plays where instead of trying to move it down the field and just get a rhythm going, anytime they get a little bit of success on first down, it feels like they shoot themselves on the foot in second or third down because they're trying to say, okay, well, we got in good position on first. Now we got to take our shot because we don't get it. We don't do this very often. We very rarely get a good yardage on a second down. So we got to take a shot now, and that's where you get holds. That's where you get incompletions. That's where you get sacks, is trying to throw the ball downfield. And so you just have to keep changing it up a little bit more to not be so predictable, and then get that offensive line just to understand what the reputation of that offensive line is right now. And, I mean, across football, college and pro, you're seeing more and more flags than you want to see. I mean, we saw a bunch last night too. And, and that's partly people just being undisciplined. And that's partly, for whatever reason, every league really trying to enforce rules on certain teams. And so it's tough, but you have to figure out a way to stop those penalties because they're destroying you right now. Because again, you're lucky you have CJ Stroud, who's been able to kind of pull you out of a lot of these, but without that, you're not winning these games. And the fact that you've been in at least 2 games, maybe 3 now, that you've really had the edge in, that you played better football in, and you just keep knocking yourself back. Like the Jacksonville game should not have been as close as it was. And that's game 3.
Game shouldn't have been as close as it was.
No, I mean, three games this season should not have been as close as they were, but they all were just mental mistakes. I mean, the muff punt was huge because that was a 7-0 deficit as opposed to the Texans being able to go down and score immediately. You basically gave them the opening kickoff on both both halves.
No, the self-inflicted wounds of the Texans right now. They are their own worst enemy.
Yeah.
With self-inflicted wounds. And it's amazing that 3-1 just shows you the ceiling for the team is really high. Because right now they probably should be they're playing like more like a 2-2 team, like a 500 team.
Yes.
But they found a way to get those wins. And that's partly because CJ Stroud was clutch on that final drive. Where he go 5 of 5 on that final drive? He had how about this? The Texans on that final drive, Stroud had a 100% success rate. He went 5 of 5 with 2 scrambles, and they had the touchdown to Ogunbowale, which was put him up 24-20. So he was just magical. As a matter of fact, he was great in the game, but they can't overburden him too much on early downs. I gave that earlier, that on early down play action with Stroud, he was 10 of 13 for 140 yards and a touchdown. So to Patrick's point, he had a 71% success rate on play action on first and second down when they threw the football, period, on first and second down against in week 4 against the Jags. They had a 57, damn near 58% success rate. But when they ran the ball, 25% success rate on early downs. So teams are still respecting the run. That's why your play action actually is so successful on those early downs. So with some combination of play action, but Patrick's right. You got to get healthier at running back so you at least have a threat in the backfield on those early downs. But man, they got to figure out some way to stay out of 3rd and long. And it's like I said, it's multifactorial. It's a lot of stuff that Patrick brought up. It's a lot of the things that I brought up about the inefficiency they have on early downs. I mean, the fact that you guys, that Minnesota game to me was, and I said before, that's the most glaring example that when they play a good defense, this 3rd and long thing will come back to haunt them. They had 14, I believe, 14 in that game. They had 14 third downs, and 13 of the 14 were 3rd and longs, and they faced more 3rd and 10 plus third downs, 3rd and 10 plus yards a game than any team since 2022. Now, right now, that's what, and by the way, it's impressive that Flores' defense right now with the Vikings, what they're doing against these Shanahan offense, right? The mixed Shanahan offense. He faced 3 make Shanahan offenses in a row. He faced Shanahan himself, Shano's offense, and also got a chance to face Slowick, and then got a chance to face Matt LaFleur. So 3 of the most successful reincarnations of the make Shanahan offense. They combined, I think, for less than 30% conversion rate on third downs. Like those 3 teams combined. And so you can't go up against a good defense, like the Texans went up against in Minnesota, or that they'll face when they face like Baltimore and other teams when your average third down is 9 yards. That's third down yards to gain is 9 yards. You have no shot at all. So that's the issue with the Texans. Issue with the Cowboys, they got a lot of issues. But I heard Stephen Jones on 105.3 The Fan when he was asked about whether the Cowboys are going to make a trade. Everybody wants to know, hey, are the Cowboys going to make a trade, try to bring in some reinforcements at running back or at D tackle? And I hate to tell you, Cowboys fans, this is Stephen Jones. He said, quote, I don't know this time of year that anyone's willing to trade their best players. He said, it's just a work in progress. We'll keep our lines of communication open around the league, and if something presents itself, then we'll certainly look at it. Okay. We'll keep our lines open if something presents itself. I hope he's just playing the media and hope they're being really aggressive behind the scenes. Because if they feel like they're going to have something drop in their lap, or if it's going to be, some, really some team that's going to offer them up the perfect scenario for a player, then they're way wrong. Like they're way off. Like they need to target players, identify players specifically, and they need to make a list and need to call teams, period. And I hope that's what the Cowboys doing at the running back position and at the D tackle position. It's a work in progress. We'll keep our lines of communication open around the league. No, you need to be calling teams actively, cold calling even teams, but you should identify prospects on damn near every roster that could help improve your roster and be willing to trade.
Yeah.
D tackle and running back. Those are your only spots.
But I think he knows the right phrases to say no one wants to trade their best players. You go, I get you're not going to get, but you're not giving up a first round pick to go get somebody's best player.
Yeah, you're not trying to get the best player.
So we're not saying you have to go get your best player. You're saying look at a team and say, well, they're running more pass rush, but they have this good defensive stopper that's a good run defender. We don't need pass rush. We need a run defender. So let's go try and get this guy. He's only playing 45% of the snaps right now. So why don't we try and go get him and give them something back that they could, like, they're a 2-2 team or whatever they are, and maybe we can get this guy who's not playing over half their snaps right now. We can get him in, and he can fill what we need on the defensive end, because you're not that far away. But when you say that the no one's best player, like, look, I'd love it if you went out and said, Kansas City, here's 3 first-round picks. We'll go get Chris Jones from you. That'd be great. You make you a much better team. You also don't need to do that.
Yeah, you're not gonna do that. It's not logical. But yeah, it's perfect. Like you said with Jonathan Hankins, that was a perfectly a compatible move, is what you needed. And I'm sure the other team at that point, I'm not sure when in the season, like what point in the season that was. So that obviously could play a role. But he was a run stuffing solution for you. And that's exactly what you need now, just a run stuffing solution at D tackle. So, yeah, I mean, there are guys like that around the league who are that specialized. That's what they do. That's why teams, have them on their roster. You need to go find those guys. and they're cheaper than the pass rushing D tackles or the D tackles that are every down D tackles. And running back too. I mean, teams around the league, trust me, there's a way for you to upgrade at running back. Probably easier to upgrade at running back than D tackle right now.
Oh well, yeah, because there's but
Honestly.
running back is a little bit more of a crapshoot. Because I think D tackle you can find somebody that does what you want them to do, and running back you're going to go out and take a guy that is being underused, and you're not 100% sure if they're being underused because they're just not going to be able to produce anymore, or that they're being underused because someone's playing better than them.
Yeah, I can see that. But there are teams that just
No,
have
but you can't
an
make a
embarrassment
move.
of riches at running
Yeah,
back.
and
And
again,
you can just go get
those
one.
guys
Yeah.
you're getting are still 5th or 6th round players that you're trading for. So it's not like you're giving up a king's ransom to go get a guy. Maybe it'll work and maybe it won't. But if you're talking about, okay, we'll give up a 4th for a guy that's a pretty good chance to work versus, waiting forever and then trying to give up a 2nd for a starter that is already having a great season. Like, well, no one's going to give that up because they don't want to give up their best player, but they
No.
will give up. They
No,
will
you
give up
don't
this
need
guy
a
behind.
starter. You
Yeah.
just need someone who can add juice to your running game. Because right now your running game has no juice. You don't have a guy that can. You don't have a breakaway player. You don't have a guy. You have guys that can move the chains, but not a player that can change the game. And you need somebody with some, play breaking ability.
Yeah.
In the backfield, you don't really have a play breaker at all. Like none of those guys can do it. They can tote the rock and do the bare minimum. You need somebody that's a threat back there to break that play wide open. That's kind of what you're missing. I would go try to get one of those types of players at the running back position. And then you can still keep the committee, but then you would have another element that you'd be able to scheme up certain, I think, big plays exposed. Right now, you're getting no big plays out of your backfield. I mean, we pointed out before last week, and I go back and look. You hadn't had a running back with a run over 10 yards.
No, I think Zeke got 10 last week.
Yeah, I think Zeke might have got one, but
I think he got 10, but I don't know if he got more than 10.
Over 10. See, like that's what I'm saying. You need and I'm not saying you got to go get an elite back. I mean, that's a playmaker. No, but you need somebody that can be explosive enough to get you more than 10 yards on a.
Oh no,
on a run.
CeeDee Lamb got 10 last week.
Yeah, see, this is my point. Like CeeDee Lamb has more explosive runs this year than any of your running backs.
Yeah, Rico
You
Dowdle
need a
got a
play breaker back
9.
there.
Ezekiel Elliott got an 8, and Lepke got a 6.
Yes,
That was your log of all those guys.
And those guys are perfectly fine, by the way. They're perfectly fine as a committee. But then you need to add some juice. You need to add somebody that can break away. And maybe they thought that would be Dalvin Cook, but that's not that Dalvin. Dalvin Cook 5 years ago, yeah, of course. Not this Dalvin Cook. You need to go get a young guy with some young legs who will turn that 6-yard run into a 16-yard run.
Yeah, let's put it this way: if Dalvin Cook hasn't earned his way onto the main roster yet, that's got to be a problem, right?
Yeah, because he should have been able to slab one of these dudes. That's it right now. I mean, this is the worst running back room in the NFL. If you can't make this running back room, you ain't gonna make any of them.
And you're playing against the Cowboys defense. So you should be able to get some runs in.
Should be. Yeah. Also, they did improve, but yeah, you should be able to at least in practice make some things happen. So they also Cowboys fans. DeMarcus Lawrence injury looks like it's going to be a little bit more severe than they anticipated. So he's going to be out anywhere from 4 to 8 weeks. So he's going to hit the injured reserve. And looks like Micah Parsons high ankle sprain, but he says it's not serious at all. It's just a sprain. He'll be back as soon as the trainers deem him healthy enough to do so. But the DeMarcus Lawrence injury, that's a little bit more concerning because it looks like it's more serious. But the Micah Parsons injury isn't as serious as expected or anticipated. So there you go. Some Cowboys news. We come back and some Texas news. We come back. We'll get into what the facts, what the stats on the other side right here on the Rodcast featuring Patrick Davis on Lifetime Longhorn. Rod Davis coming back on the Horn. All right, welcome back to the Rodcast. Time for what the facts, what the stats. Got a bunch of these here. How about this one? Brock Purdy actually is starting to show that he may be a little bit more than just a product of a system. That's usually, Shanahan quarterbacks is like, oh no, insert quarterback here. It's more the system than it is the quarterback itself. But there have been some injuries with the 49ers, a lot of them actually. Christian McCaffrey's got like double tendonitis or something weird
It
going
just
on.
keeps getting worse, doesn't it?
Yeah, he's like, don't go to Germany because now it's worse. Like, what happened?
They're going to come back in the back. He doesn't have legs anymore. He's gone. We don't know where they went.
Yeah, so I don't know. I don't know what the timetable is for Christian McCaffrey. Debo's got injuries dealing with. George Kittle's dealt with an injury. Trent Williams has dealt with injuries. The only guy that's been healthy actually is Brandon Ayuk for the entire season. And yet, the 49ers passing game ranks second in passing yards per game, second in average net yards per attempt, second in hero throw rate. That's basically big time throws. Third in catchable throw rate. And if you go look at it right now, yards after catch per reception, this is why people thought the 49ers offense is a system. You can put any quarterback in there because it's a yak system. It's built, for the weapons around the quarterback to achieve, right? And for those guys to be maximized. You get the ball to them, high percentage, easy completions, quarterback friendly completions, and then the yak daddies will take over from there. So 49ers in the yak per reception. This is yards after catch per reception. Here's their rank in the last 4 years. 2021, first. 2022, second. 2023, first. And through the first 4 games of 2024, the 31st.
Oof.
Because they don't have the yak daddies. They're all hurt and injured. So it's just Brock Purdy out there slinging that thing.
Yeah, that game he had
looked good
to Juwan Jennings the other day. Not this week, but the week before. 175 yards and 3 touchdowns.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like,
Juwan Jennings
to that point, Patrick, no, seriously, you just brought up a great point. Think about it. So here are the 49ers rank in NFL yardage categories. So passing yards, Brock Purdy, a 7th rounder. I believe Purdy's first in passing yards, if I'm not mistaken. You go look at, this is actually before last night. I go check last night after the Monday Night Football and see where everything is now. But rushing yards, Jordan Mason, he's an undrafted free agent, right? Yeah. He's top 3 in rushing yards, receiving yards. Juwan Jennings, 2020 7th rounder. He's also top 5 in receiving yards. Isn't that crazy? That's the 49ers in a nutshell. 49ers are just a freaky recipe, man. Like that. And so even without their best pieces, you see some of the other guys that they have drafted in late rounds and undrafted guys step up. Pretty amazing. Yeah. Also, now Geno Smith is leading. I take that back. See, I knew it. Geno Smith is leading now. Brock Purdy second.
There you go. Yeah, but you weren't expecting that one either. But
yeah, he was. Yeah, exactly. Great point. Yeah, true that. Good point about that. And then Jordan Mason is second now in rushing. So he's second in rushing. And Juwan Jennings is 4th in receiving yards. Those guys are undrafted, 7th round picks, last pick, Mr. Irrelevant, and yet they're top 5 in statistical categories in the NFL. So that is some of the product of the system, but also just great evaluation by the 49ers. I mean, hell, anybody in the league could have had those guys. Everybody could have had those guys.
Yeah.
You could have had those guys. But would they be doing that? Would they be leading the NFL? Would they be top 5 statistically in those categories on your offense? Probably not.
No, we know Brock Purdy most likely would not be either. He wouldn't be in the NFL, or he would still be a backup on pretty much any other situation. I wouldn't even say team, but just situation where it was you got thrown into it and then had the pieces around you to succeed early, and then just continue to grow from there. But that's a really weird, rare situation to be thrown in when you go in, and then you go, here's all of these weapons also, and a system that works to kind of ease you into this. And then as you grow in the system, it'll become better and better. But I mean, that's very rare.
It is. No, I agree with you. Another factor. How about this? Teams that don't score an offensive touchdown, 4-7 this season. They were 3-57 in the opening 4 weeks of the last 7 seasons when not scoring an offensive touchdown. So teams that didn't score an offensive touchdown at all, they're 4-7 so far this year. That's a 36% winning percentage. In the last 7 seasons, through the first 4 weeks, Teams that didn't score a touchdown were 3-57. But something weird's going on this year. I don't know. Teams are able to win without scoring a touchdown. We just saw it recently. A team win without scoring a touchdown this past week. So crazy stuff. Also, one more other factoid before we get to the break here. The the Denver Broncos. I didn't realize this, and I was going to bring it up yesterday, and I forgot all about it. But it is a freaky, crazy stat. So the Denver Broncos with Bo Nix as their starting quarterback. Oh, Pat, you probably saw this too. They had he threw for 7 yards in the first half of that game against the Jets. He managed that total on he had seven completions in the first half for only 7 yards. He ended the game 12 of 25 for 60 yards, 1 touchdown, no interceptions, passer rating of 67.9, and somehow they still beat the Jets. He per Pro Football Reference, there hasn't been an NFL quarterback since 1950 on the winning end of a game throwing 60 or fewer yards on 25 or more attempts. So he made some history there. Maybe the bad kind of history. Some ugly winning going on in the league, man. Hey, it doesn't matter how it looks, as long as you get the win. All right, we come back. We'll get into the games last night. Speaking of history being made, Jared Goff, perfect in his win last night over the Seahawks. We'll get to that coming up. We'll also get into, I want to talk a little Kansas City Chiefs because they're still the other undefeated team in the NFL. We talked a lot about the Vikings. What about the other undefeated team? How do they look? And how do they get to 4-0? We'll discuss that. We'll go behind the burn orange curtain. We'll hear from Steve Sarkisian talking about this 5-0 undefeated Texas football team going into the bye week. We'll also talk about the Texas OU game a little bit. The line has been released, and it's a big one. All that and more right here on the Rodcast featuring Patrick Davis and Lifetime Longhorn. Rod Davis coming back on the horn. All right, welcome back to the Rodcast. Time to get to some, of course, top of the charts Tuesday. That's when my man Patrick plays jams to reach the top of the Billboard charts on this day in history. Always good to have him hooking us up with the top of the charts Tuesday. All of our musically themed days of the week. Little Prince here for you. Also, Patrick does a great job of coming up with the topics for the big fat poll of the day. And right now, you can go check that out at the Horn ATX on X. Patrick, what is the topic for the big fat poll of the day?
Big fat poll today. Which NFL team is the biggest surprise so far this season? Right now, the Vikings have the lead with 47% of the vote, 40% of the vote with the Commanders, and then the Bengals and Steelers both at 6% of the vote. A couple people saying the Bengals and Steelers, but a lot of people are with us on the Vikings and Commanders as the two most big surprises. And then the Vikings just eking it out. They're 4-0. The Commanders are 4-0. I think they might have taken it. But that one loss, just go, okay, not quite as surprising as a 4-0 team in the Vikings.
Oh, man. Yeah, no, I agree with you. Yeah. I'm struggling to figure out, remember what the loss is for Washington because I don't think I've paid that close attention to it. But you're right. They have, the Vikings with Sam Darnold, backup quarterback, going 4-0, truly remarkable. And I looked it up. He's actually leading the NFL in passer rating now, I guess, after I think Josh Allen was leading. Now he's leading in passer rating. He's second among quarterbacks with at least 100 attempts. He's second in QBR. So Josh Allen is leading in QBR. Then it's Andy Dalton, but Andy Dalton doesn't have even 100 attempts when he does. And Andy Dalton's actually playing pretty good. And we'll see what he looks like in another start for the Carolina Panthers. But Sam Darnold and Josh Allen are basically your two top quarterbacks in passer rating and in QBR. Strangely enough, Jaden Daniels, he's third in passer rating behind Sam Darnold. Josh Allen is Jaden Daniels. Then there's Baker Mayfield. So your top 4 in passer rating right now, if you go look at it, oh man, I didn't even think about this. That's crazy. Okay, so Joe Flacco got in the game when Anthony Richardson got hurt.
Yeah.
Joe Flacco played really well. Joe Flacco, he doesn't have enough passes. I wouldn't to qualify. I wouldn't put him in that category. But they got him top 5 in passer rating up here. Like I said, he doesn't have the 100 passes. I would put him up there. I would say if you have 100 passes, that's the minimum qualifier. So looking at quarterbacks with at least 100 passes, it's Sam Darnold, passer rating ranking, Sam Darnold, Josh Allen, Jaden Daniels, Baker Mayfield. And if you look at QBR, it's Josh Allen. Like I said, I'll take Andy Dalton. Doesn't have enough pass to qualify. It's Josh Allen leading in QBR, then Sam Darnold, then Jaden Daniels. And then Brock freaking Purdy is 5th in QBR, and he is 6th, I think, in passer rating. Yeah. Behind, this goes to your question that you brought up, the topic of Big Fat Poll today, because Joe Burrow is also in this group. Joe Burrow is 6th in QBR, right behind Brock Purdy, who's 5th, and he is Joe Burrow in passer rating is 5th. He's tied with Joe. He's basically 5th. He's tied with Flacco, but he's got more pass attempts. So all the teams that we have addressed in the topic for the Big Fat Poll today, the most surprising, Minnesota, their surprise story and surprise headline is Sam Darnold leading the NFL in passer rating, 2nd in QBR. Jaden Daniels in Washington, he is 3rd in passer rating, and he is 4th in QBR. That is eye-popping, exceeding expectations. Your Bengals, the bad surprise. How are they that even more surprising? How are they that bad when Joe Burrow is basically top 5 in the NFL in passer rating and QBR? Yeah. Joe Burrow's playing out of his mind. And so that is even, like you said, that's eye-popping because you would think, oh, if they're playing bad, Joe Burrow must be having an off year or Joe Burrow's been hurt. Nope, Joe Burrow's balling. And yet the Bengals can't translate that into wins. And then the other one for you broke out of the Steelers. And the Steelers to me are the least surprising because I've always said Mike Tomlin is a hell of a coach. And that Mike Tomlin, even in that division, nobody has been better in one-score games than Mike Tomlin in that division with Baltimore and with Cincinnati. You're talking about it is just a hellacious division. The Browns have been, a better team and got a whole lot of talent. And yet nobody without a franchise quarterback, nobody's been better in the last few years than Mike Tomlin in one-score games in that division. Mike Tomlin's a hell of a coach. And now he's getting the best out of Justin Fields. Is Justin Fields going to be a franchise quarterback? I don't think so. But I got to tell you, there are a lot of surprising stories at the quarterback position in this league right now. And a lot of them are quarterbacks who have bloomed later on in their careers after a circuitous route to becoming, a starter at the NFL level, whether it be Baker Mayfield, whether it be Jared Goff, who we'll talk about here, who just had the perfect performance, whether it be Geno Smith, who we're talking about, Sam Darnold, who we're talking about as well. And Justin Fields, he might be late. Now, Justin Fields, as a passer, this season, he's not elite. I think he's 17th in attempts, 17th in completions. He's 6th in completion percentage. So they're giving him some Justin Fields friendly concepts. Yards per attempt, he's 11th. Interception rate and percentage, 5th. Big time throw rate, he's 7th. Look at turnover worthy throws, he's 2nd, only behind Aaron Rodgers in turnover throw percentage and rate. Pro Football Focus has his passing grade at 8th overall. His adjusted completion percentage is 3rd. It's the best we've seen him look as a quarterback. Now, as a dynamic athlete at the quarterback position, yes, he's rushed for 1,000 yards. We've seen that. But remember I told you the worst thing about his game? Anthony Richardson's like this too. They haven't learned how to be game managers. And it's like, you still got to learn how to manage the game. I know you're dynamic back there when you drive back and you scramble and you can hit the corner and you can separate from defenders with the ball as a ball carrier, and you can make, these big throws downfield that show off your arm talent. And so, yeah, you're capable of the blockbuster, dynamic, explosive play at any time, but the routine play gives you trouble. I would say that about Anthony Richardson, right? He makes the extraordinary look simple, but can't really do the simple things well, right? He makes the extraordinary look ordinary, but can't do the ordinary things really well. And that's kind of Justin Fields, because those guys haven't learned how to just manage a game yet. That's why being a game manager is not a quarterback slur. It's a step in your development and evolution as a quarterback. You have to learn how to manage the game first before you can ever become a franchise quarterback or a playoff quarterback or a signal caller or a game executive, as I call it. You got to learn how to just manage a game. And I think with Justin Fields, I don't know where he's going to be. We didn't know where Baker Mayfield was going to be, and we didn't know where Geno Smith was going to be, or Jared Goff was going to be either, or Sam Darnold. But now those guys, like, taking a circuitous route, they're looking like the quarterbacks that everybody initially thought that they were capable of being when they were drafted as high as they were. But after being given up on and discarded and called a bust and having to float around to different teams to find the right situation, maybe it was maturity on their part. Maybe it was the right situation, the right play caller, the right compatibility with the right system and the right team. Who knows? It probably was a confluence of a lot of different variables to lead them to this point. But it looks like Justin Fields, at least with the Pittsburgh Steelers, I'm not saying he's going to end up being their version of what Baker Mayfield, Jared Goff, and Geno Smith have been, or Sam Darnold is for the Vikings, but he's managing a game better than I've ever seen him do it. He has finally learned how to manage a game. He's actually a game manager and thinking through critical situations as a pocket passing quarterback. Now, if he can just take that with him wherever he ends up going after the Steelers, we may be talking about one of those stories where in like 4 years we look up and we go, Justin freaking Fields is balling like this? Because nobody would have said that about Geno. Geno, right now, guys, on passes 10 yards or more down the field, he's the most accurate quarterback in the league. He has the lowest off-target rate of any quarterback in the league on passes of 10 yards or more down the field. Anybody see that coming? Anybody see Sam Darnold leading the NFL in passer rating? Baker Mayfield also in the top 5 in passer rating in QBR with the Bucs without Dave Canales. But they love him. Mike Evans called him one of the best dual threat quarterbacks like in the league. I'm like, he's not even a dual threat quarterback. He's got Mike Evans brainwashed and he's a dual threat quarterback. That's how well he's playing. He's like, he's one of the best dual threat quarterbacks. And I'm like, dude, he's a dual threat quarterback. But that's how much Baker's balling out there right now. He's balling so hard that Mike Evans is like, man, this guy, he can do anything at the quarterback position.
No, by the way,
and that's a lot of that is on Baker. Baker's matured a lot too.
Baker is the one who gave the Commanders the one loss. He had a big game against Commanders in Tampa Bay against the loss. And then the loss the Steelers have is to the Colts with Joe Flacco coming in and Flacco being able to game manage a win. That's
pretty much. That's all he's doing. That's exactly right.
Say, hey, all right, we got an early lead with Anthony Richardson in the game, and then I'll just manage it throughout, and the Steelers will not let the Steelers come back and beat us.
I did not realize that. Good stuff there, Patrick. Yeah, but I don't know. I feel like all these stories are somehow a little bit connected to your topic for the Big Fat Poll of the day, and it's all about these surprise stories at quarterback, pretty much. that's happening. Whether it's about a Jaden Daniels or something like that, it's all about these quarterbacks exceeding expectations and shocking everyone with really I think ultimately the way that they have been able to resuscitate their careers. Because we thought, Baker Mayfield's career is dead. And ended up, with the Panthers and the Rams. We're like, that guy will never end up being a true franchise quarterback again. And I don't know if he's a franchise quarterback. Depends on your definition of it. But I guarantee you Tampa Bay's reconsidering whether he is or not. And Geno Smith forcing the Seattle Seahawks to reconsider it or not. And, Sam Darnold's not because they already got J.J. McCarthy. But guarantee Sam Darnold next year I don't even know what his contract status is, so I don't know if he signed a 2-year one or whatever. But I guarantee you there are some teams right now where they're thinking about trading for Sam Darnold or thinking about picking him up in the offseason. Like, oh, no, we can do something with Sam Darnold. Like, we've seen him flash that brilliance as to live up to the expectations of why he was drafted so high. So I love those stories. Those are great stories. We haven't seen stories like this in the NFL, I don't think ever. This many this many quarterbacks that have gotten their third or fourth chance potentially with a team and now playing their best football of their careers.
Yeah. I don't think, if we go, we have to go back, but if you go back 20 years ago, you didn't blow through quarterbacks that fast.
Also true.
It was also more of a running league. And so it wasn't like, you didn't have to have the quarterback. It wasn't as deadly if you had a bad quarterback who couldn't just do everything. But it would hold on to quarterbacks a little bit longer than they used to than now. Where you're talking 3-4 games now. It's like if you can't do it in 3-4 games, we may move on. Like unless you're a top 15 pick in the draft.
Yeah.
Hey, you know what? You don't get half a season even anymore. And if you're not look, we'll give you another 3-4 games in a year or two, but you're going to get 3-4 games. And if you suck, that's it, man. We got to move on. We can't sit here because we're just getting lambasted and the ownership doesn't want to get made fun of the whole time that they drafted the wrong guy. So they're going to say, change it up. And Bryce Young made it through a season and then this season in year 2, and that's a number 1 overall pick. Made it 2 games into the second year.
2 games, yeah. So he basically got, I don't know if he started every game last year. You're talking about he got 17, 18 games or whatever it was, and that's it.
For a number 1 overall pick.
No, you're right. We have no patience. We are an instant gratification society, and I think that also has affected evaluation of the quarterback. So you're right. You probably give up on him too early.
Yeah, you put him in.
By the way, these coaches, their average stint at one job is around 3.5, 4 years. So I really can't blame them because they're like, hey, I got to win right away because if I don't win, I'm out.
Yeah.
Like I'm going. Now you see more one and done coaches too. Like, nah, you out, man. You're not worthy or you have not shown enough promise to be head coach of this team. So that's why a lot of the coaches are deciding I got to move on quickly.
No,
so it's like
you get a college kid who plays for 1.5 seasons in college, comes to the pros, has to start immediately, and then gets a season, and then they go, no, sorry, you have 2 to 2.5 seasons of starting quarterback in your career, and like in your college to pro career, and it's over.
It's over.
We thought
that's what we're talking about with Trey Lance, right?
You became good enough to get drafted that high, and then it's over. Like in that amount of time, that's crazy.
That's Trey Lance, though. In a nutshell, is it not? Is it not Trey Lance in a nutshell?
Trey Lance,
I don't even know how many games he started. He didn't start that many games for them to go.
No.
Oh, hell no. He ain't. But they are watching these guys in practice too. So that's nothing. We see the games, but they also see practice every day. They're going, man, he can't pick it up. I think Shannon at one point decided watching Brock Purdy along with Trey Lance and went, why is Brock Purdy ahead of Trey Lance? Why? Why is he ahead of him? Why is he making more plays? Why is he picking up defenses quicker? Why is he getting through progressions faster than Trey Lance? If that's the case, they just gave up on Trey Lance after all they invested in him. And to your point, Trey Lance can play much football at quarterback in college.
Between the age of like 20 and 23 went from the hope of a franchise to the biggest bust. And like all that, like there was never just straight up and straight back down.
You're right. And he, didn't get a lot of starts. He didn't get many starts. I don't even know if he's got 10 starts.
I mean, how many? We got 2 in the NFL.
Yeah, because he didn't get. You're talking about in the league, so he did. I'm talking about preseason, everything, like all of it combined. I don't think he's had many like starts.
No,
as a player, period. because you're right. He's injuries and it just didn't work out. And we give up on quarterbacks really quickly. So I wanted Trey Lance could be one of those guys in a few years. We look up and go, damn, Trey Lance is balling right now. What happened? It's like, well, he just needs some time to mature, to play the quarterback position, to learn it, to be in a system that was compatible, a coach that wanted to believe in him and empower him. It's a lot of different factors that play a role, but I think it's remarkable what we're seeing. And we'll start with that Jared Goff story. But first, let's get updated, educated, and informed with all the top stories of the day with Patrick Davis and the Horn headlines.
All right, your Horn headlines brought to you by Top Gun Rentals and Lawn Equipment. The MLB playoffs begin today with the 4 wildcard series, starting with the Astros taking on the Tigers at 1:30. Framber Valdez will take them out for the Astros, taking on Tariq Skubal, in the likely AL Cy Young winner for the Tigers. Also today, the Royals take on the Orioles. The Mets face the Brewers, and the Braves play the Padres. In the NFL, the Titans picked up their first win of the season over the Dolphins, 31-12, with Mason Rudolph coming in for an injured Will Levis in the first quarter. And the Lions handed the Seahawks their first loss in a 42-29 win, with Jared Goff going for a perfect 18 for 18 on pass attempts for 292 yards and 2 touchdowns. And that's your Horn headlines.
Yes, thank you for the Horn headlines there, Patrick. And I think Jared Goff is probably one of the more notable stories we talk about of quarterbacks reinventing themselves successfully, because he is truly, no doubt, a franchise quarterback for the Detroit Lions. No question about that. And last night, he set an NFL record for completion percentage. 100% completion percentage, 18 of 18. Actually, the Detroit Lions were 19 of 19. So they set 2 records. First team to have a perfect completion percentage as a team in a single game, and also first quarterback to have more than 10 passes, because I think it was Kurt Warner who had 10 attempts and 10 completions. So he was 10 of 10, but this is the most prolific perfect performance by a quarterback in NFL history. 18 of 18, 292 yards, 2 touchdowns. And I was actually shocked they did not target Jahmyr Gibbs. Matter of fact, he hadn't gotten a target in the last 2 games. So they're kind of turning him into more of a workhorse running back for him that can run in between the tackles and do some different things in the running game, and not using him as primarily a weapon in the passing game. But we know he can do both. And this Detroit Lions offense is scary good, though. And they're going to score that many points when your quarterback has a perfect completion percentage. But this offense is scary. They look like they're better as an offense than they were last season. Last year, you're talking about one of the most prolific offenses in the league. So remember, Ben Johnson stayed. That was big. They were to keep him. This year, the Lions have to take advantage of having Ben Johnson there, because I think he's gone after this year.
Yeah, I mean, we remember that was a whole thing with the Commanders, that they were going to hire him, and they were flying to Detroit for a meeting. And while they were there, the agent called and said that he wasn't going to come.
Ooh,
and so they were in the air and got the call and pissed off about that. But he decided he didn't want to go deal with that team, which, I mean, looking back on now, I think everybody's happy about how it worked out.
Yeah, but would he have ended up with a Jaden Daniels?
I don't know. But that's what I'm saying. The Commanders can't be upset about it.
No, they can't be. It's working out well for them. But honestly, the truth is, I think
Ben Johnson's happy he's staying in Detroit.
Is this Dan Quinn or Jaden Daniels?
Or Cliff Kingsbury?
The reason for Washington, huh? Or Cliff Kingsbury. Yeah, because I think, listen, Ben Johnson offense would have been great, but you're right. Maybe Cliff Kingsbury his offense a little bit more compatible with Jaden Daniels. So you're right. I don't know if it'll work that.
I think Cliff Kingsbury has more experience at this point in his career of working with different quarterbacks, and maybe has a little bit more to say, okay, I know how to get a quarterback like this to work, versus Ben Johnson, who may have to throw a couple more things at the wall. I think he could probably do it, but you know, the fact that Cliff had just worked with Caleb Williams, the fact that he's worked with Kyler Murray, puts him into a different realm of kind of understanding what that quarterback that's going to scramble a little bit more, how to make that work.
Yeah, I like that. That's fair. I still think it probably would have worked with Ben Johnson.
I think it would have too. Yeah. But I think Ben's fine and having a good time going, I got Jared Goff to go 18 for 18. And then we threw a wide receiver pass with Amon-Ra, and he got a touchdown out of it too, and a completion.
Totally agree. But the toughest thing to do when you get a head coaching job is to find your quarterback.
Yes.
and you just missed the quarterback.
That's true.
So you're going to go to a job and have to try to find a quarterback when Washington's got one who people are saying now is a dude. So my thing was, that's why if I'm Ben Johnson, I'm probably kicking myself a little bit because I could have had my QB in the future. And if you don't find your QB as a coach, you might as well be on the hot seat in year 1 or 2.
For the record,
that's the way it works.
There could be 2 job openings. One is Cincinnati. Very easily could be an open job.
Could be. I think Zach Taylor might get a little bit more leeway just because he's going to a Super Bowl. But you're right. That's they want to see some from
depends on what they
investment.
Do. If they're a below 500 team, he's fired. Right.
Certainly likely, yeah. I mean, it's like you can't be below 500 with Joe Burrow as a top 5 quarterback.
No, and not with a notoriously cheap owner who just paid.
And you got to pay Jamar Chase too.
Yeah, he's like, no, man, I can't pay you too.
No, you're right.
So he's probably out. And then we know Buffalo's playing well right now, but that Sean McDermott has been on a hot seat for 3 seasons now. He
has, but I think he's saving himself right now because they're turning things around. Joe Brady's doing a good job up there calling the play. So I don't think there's a guarantee that he's going to get a job with a good quarterback.
No.
That's why I think now he didn't know they were going to have Jaden Daniels, but he knew he was going to get a high pick. But he didn't know. I mean, we've talked about it. Hell, the number 2 picks are working out better than the number 1 picks right now. So it ain't no rhyme or reason, and that is that is an inexact science. So ain't no guarantee he would have picked the right guy. But now if they have that guy, oh man, you missed out on one. That's like missed out on coaching CJ Stroud. Like
exactly.
That's how Bobby Stokes like. I'm sticking around here for a while. I ain't in no rush to leave. CJ Stroud make me look real good because we can see Bobby Stokes go somewhere and look pedestrian real fast and go, oh, that wasn't it. That was CJ the whole time.
Yeah.
So, but you're right. They nobody's regretting that right now because everybody feels good about where they are.
Yeah, because right now you still have a better shot to win a Super Bowl in Detroit too.
That's true. Yes, very true. No doubt. And you're gonna have your pick. He'll be one of the top 2 or 3 candidates, no matter what. I can't think of a candidate that would be considered higher or at least considered a better head coaching candidate right now than Ben Johnson. I'm sure there are some other ones, but he's the top of that list.
He's got to be up there.
He's got to be the top.
Because the other ones are more the old school guys like the Vrabels and the Belichicks, whose name will be
retreads.
That'll be going back out there,
guys.
But they're more the old school and where coaches want to go, where owners want to go less now.
They want to go offense, they want to go quarterback guru,
and they don't want to go guy who's going to yell at us.
Well, let's remember Brian Flores, who's having a great season at DC. Before the season started, remember that people were down on him and critical of him.
But that's the thing.
There's a Tua story.
But there's a big difference between a DC and a head coach.
Yes, no, I agree. But that was when he was a head coach. Remember?
Yeah,
he was head coach of the Dolphins when Tua was telling the stories about him. being
exactly.
Overly critical.
But I'm saying him doing really well right now is at a DC.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's what I'm saying. Like I'm agreeing with your point that when he was a head coach, the stories were out that he was too damn harsh and too old school, and now he's a great DC. But I think when people think about him as a head coach, if they were thinking about the retread, that would come to mind. That story initially, like think about what Tua don't even like. I mean, he's not really a player-friendly guy, and we want player-friendly, quarterback-friendly guys. And so I agree with you. You're right about that.
The conversation I had a couple this weekend explaining to people about Brian Flores, and they were like the lawsuit and everything, and you were explaining and trying to explain.
I forgot about the lawsuit too.
You're trying to explain. The NFL's done a good enough job of making him look more like the bad guy in this and trying to explain. As a black head coach, there's not as many opportunities, and several head coaches over the last few years that have been asked to tank. And Brian Flores did not want to go on his record and say, you're going to give me 2 seasons of tanking and then fire me, and then I'll always be thought of as a failure as a head coach, even though you were basically telling me to be bad. But we have seen that happen to a ton. The Texans did it to 2 in a row.
Yeah, they did. Yep.
And so
Lovey didn't want to do it at the end. He's like, nah. And he saved you. Lovey reason got CJ Stroud. He saved you.
But
he saved
I was
you.
like trying to explain that part of the story doesn't come out as much. You get much more of the, he was a cruel guy to Tua, and he just doesn't like the NFL, and he doesn't fit into this mold. But the reality was the basis of the lawsuit was I finally got an opportunity as a head coach, and then you tell me to lose games. And how am I ever supposed to have a career if that's what you're going to do?
Yeah. I mean, I forgot all about the lawsuit. Yeah, I don't know if Brian Flores gets another head coaching shot, period. You know what I mean? But and maybe that's for the best because maybe he's not a head coach. Maybe he is more of a defensive coordinator. But you're right. He definitely got shafted, got jobbed. That was not an ideal situation for a guy like Brian Flores to succeed. But the game last night, I will say this about the Detroit Lions. they've done a masterful job, man. Personnel wise, whether you're talking about personnel or whether you're talking about coaching, because I remember, they seem like this island of misfit toys because they have all these pieces that were once kind of thrown away and discarded. Like nobody wanted Dan Campbell really as a coach in the NFL. A lot of people were shocked when he got the gig, and then he's talking about biting kneecaps. People were like, oh no, he's not mature enough for the job. His conduct and behavior is unbecoming of a head coach, that kind of thing. And turns out people called him a clown, right? But he's just the right kind of clown for that circus. It's a perfect coach for them and the perfect kind of culture catalyst for them. And then you got Jared Goff, discarded piece as a throwaway in a trade where the Rams are trying to move on and upgrade that quarterback. And turns out he's the perfect franchise quarterback for the Detroit Lions. And then it got Brad Holmes, who's a very underrated GM. Nobody really saw him as a successful hire. And he's, I think now, his draft picks, 22% of them have become Pro Bowlers. Those guys he drafted, which are pretty damn good hit rates. And then, of course, the Detroit Lions themselves as a franchise have pretty much been forgotten about, and they have a very shameful, embarrassing football history as an organization and franchise. Best team they've had in 60, 70 years or whatever it is now. And so it seems like it's like the perfect confluence of headlines and the perfect confluence of storylines, I should say, for the Detroit Lions there. One thing I am concerned about before we get to the break, I don't know what the Miami Dolphins are going to do. Dolphins have still not actually led in a game so far this year. They have not led at all in a game so far this year. And as
during regulation, because they did win
during regulation,
they kicked a field goal with 0 seconds left. So they
said they hadn't led though.
They had not led, but they won. I feel because when we say that, it feels like you're saying they haven't won, but they've won.
Yeah, but
just clarify.
But they hadn't led.
No, you're right.
That is a fact. They haven't led in the game this year. Yes, they got a W, but you're right. They haven't led in the game this year. And that was so even when Tua was healthy, they weren't, necessarily a prolific offense. They weren't clicking on all cylinders. Now that Tua's out, and we don't know the timeline of Tua's status with the head injury, man, this Dolphins offense is struggling just to do simple things. And they did have an 11-play, 70-yard touchdown drive, but it took like a little over 7 minutes for them to get that touchdown drive. They only had they only had 7 yards in the third quarter going into the final period. I don't know what Mike McDaniel's going to do because he's got to figure it out quickly because as long as he's in purgatory waiting on Tua, they're going to be bad like this. So either he's got to go get a high-priced backup quarterback, trade for one, go get yourself a legit backup quarterback, not one of these guys who's inexperienced, some guy can go win you that's actually won games before, or you guys have to move on from Tua. And you can draft a quarterback really high up too if you want to, as also to be the backup, but drafting a quarterback and still going to come to the situation at one point you got to move on from Tua or decide whether you're moving on. And if you draft a quarterback high in the draft, everybody knows, okay, you're moving on at one point from Tua. You just signed him to the big deal. I think you go two ways. I think you either move on from Tua, pay him his money, and say, man, we gotta chart a different course here and go draft a quarterback of the future, or you get the best backup in the NFL you can get with the expectation that unfortunately this is not going to be his last concussion. If he's coming back, he's going to sustain another concussion, and we're going to need to be able to kind of pick up right where we leave as an offense. So those are your options, and you better figure it out quick. Mike McDaniel.
And don't draft Shedeur Sanders because I can't deal with Mike McDaniels and Shedeur Sanders in Miami. Seems like it's just
him in Miami. Period. Just to
seems bad, right? Seems bad.
Oh,
seems
that's
like
not good.
Asking for trouble.
Good. Yeah, I wouldn't do that. He was mighty close to Quinn on that pro day, though. He likes him from Quinn Ewers a little bit, and he likes the Sark system. He took a lot of Sark's concepts from Alabama in that offense and has used them at Miami because Tua. That's when Tua was really successful in Sark's offense. So he likes Sark's offense. It's very compatible that way too. So, but they got to figure out something. And he lost to Tennessee Titans 31-12. Titans backup quarterback came in because Will Levis got hurt. And they still were able to beat you 31-12. So it's not just the backup quarterback thing. Their team's winning games, still able to operate at a reasonably competent level with a backup quarterback. That's not the Dolphins right now. They look incompetent and inept. with their backup. So they got to figure something out. All right. We'll come back. We'll get into Steve Sarkisian's audio, some of the audio from his Monday media availability, talking about the Longhorns bye week, going into the bye week undefeated. And also we're talking about the things they want to work on in this bye week. We'll hear from Steve Sarkisian on the other side, right here on the Rodcast, featuring Patrick Davis on Lifetime Longhorn. Rod Davis coming back on the horn. All right, welcome back to the Rodcast. Time to get some Texas football conversation. Hear from Steve Sarkisian. And the bye week is a week to work on some things, get back to the basics, focus on the details. You know, you got extra week for game planning. They're going to put in the Oklahoma game plan this week and basically give the guys 2 weeks to immerse themselves in that Texas OU game plan. And the folks will be getting guys healthy. They said they're not gonna practice. They're not gonna practice on the weekend. So basically, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, guys will be off, and that's their time to get some R&R, go see the family, hang out. But they're gonna practice, I believe, up until Thursday, and then the guys will get the weekend off to go home, hang out, do whatever they want to do, and they get a chance to work on things individually. They'll be. I mean, I remember watching a lot of film and bye weeks, doing a lot of self analysis, like introspective analysis, trying to figure out exactly where my game was and how teams were picking on me and what I needed to work on. So there'll be a lot of that. There'll be, I think, oftentimes guys just trying to get healthy is the number one priority in the bye week. But something that Longhorns need to work on, I think, as a team, their run game. and a better start to the run game. The run game struggled to find its groove early on versus Mississippi State. Of course, fumbles don't help and penalties don't help. They only had 10 rushing yards in that first half, but then really asserted themselves and asserted their dominance in the second half. And I think Texas ended with 180-something rushing yards on the night. But here is Sark talking about the run game, trying to establish, with the injuries at running back, a championship caliber run game.
I would want more, if you truth be told, on the in the run game. I think we're close, I think we're close. That's why I really challenge the receivers, because a lot of those chunk runs or big runs are a byproduct of that receiver making that last block. Our longest run the other day was by Trey Wisner down our sidelines. And if you go back and watch the play, you see the effort from DeAndre Moore on that play. He went and blocked the safety. Once the ball spit out, he turns and runs, and then he goes and blocks the corner, and it springs Trey for a long run. And so it's really getting our guys to understand that the effort that is needed to play with when we perimeter block. It's one thing on the bubble screens and things like that. It's another in the run game and being committed to it, because the better our run game goes, the better the play action pass game is going to be. You can't defend both those two things, equally if we're doing it right. And so, yeah, I would like to have a few more, chunk runs. I think we're more than capable to have a championship caliber run game. I mean, I think we're really well versed in our schemes. I think we've got good runners. We've got a really good O-line, and I think we're very close to having kind of that breakout type game. So we'll see how that goes.
All right, that's Stark saying he thinks they're close to having, that breakout game in the run game. And, I think a lot of that's going to be on the O-line. We know there are injuries at running back, so we are not sure, how that group is going to look, how that unit is going to look mid-season. Just got into SEC play, and it seems like every running back's been a little bit nicked up or has already missed a game. Jaden Blue got benched after fumbling twice in that game versus Mississippi State. So I think it's clear the running back position just may not be where Texas wants it to be right now. That's why I've said you're going to lead with the pass. You got to be a pass first team, pass to open up the run. I think Sark understands that too. But the O-line is going to be big here. And I believe, in my opinion, some of why the running game hasn't been able to really impose its will, because the offensive line hasn't done that yet in run blocking. They have the ability to be a dominant run blocking group. They do. And I think once they can start to move some guys around and get more push in the running game up front, they're definitely going to need it versus Oklahoma. I think that's when you'll see this run game really, truly take off. But as a pass blocking unit, that's also something they got to work on, right? There was some holding calls, some penalties on the O-line in that game versus Mississippi State. Also in that game versus Mississippi State, you go look at it, they allowed 2 sacks. Now, 2 sacks is not a lot. It's not a huge number, but you're going to face better defensive fronts than Mississippi State. This is the truth. You are. And that could have been a product of Arch Manning, because Arch holds onto the ball a little bit longer than Quinn. Quinn's time to throw around 2.2 seconds. Arch last game was around 2.8 seconds. So Arch likes to get deeper into progressions, hold on to the ball a little bit longer, take some of those deep shots, right? Chicks dig the long ball, and so does Arch. But I think pass blocking for the offensive line is also going to be something that's going to be challenged, especially in this game versus Oklahoma. They bring a lot of pressure. They bring a lot of exotic looks, simulated pressure. They do a ton of different exotic pressure looks. So here's Sark talking about the pass protection, which he also thinks needs to improve after watching them versus Mississippi State.
Yeah, I've never really tracked it like that to say you had X amount of time. We use the term cooking steaks back there, right? For those of you that grill out. And the one that stood out the most to me was the second touchdown pass to DeAndre Moore in the back of the end zone. It was tremendous protection, and it allowed Arch to really step into that throw, because he had to make a heck of a throw. It was one thing to get it over the DB, but it was another not to throw it out of the back of the end zone, and to do that, you want to have a clean pocket to make that throw. But even on some other plays, like, the first touchdown to DeAndre, they brought one more guy that we could block. But the O-line, those 5 guys blocked their 5 so well that Arch knew who the one free hitter was going to be. And he showed a lot of contact courage to make that throw. But I think they're being assignment sound in protection. They're doing a good job of finishing kind of in the pocket to where he has a clean pocket and not letting it get leaky. But again, that's a veteran group. and they take a lot of pride in it, whether it's Quinn, whether it's Arch. They take a lot of pride in protecting the quarterback.
Yeah, I love that Kelvin Banks quote, right? I love when he said, "I take pride in my quarterback not being touched by the hands of man." It's a great quote. Here is the quarterback, hopefully that won't be touched by the hands of man. It's Quinn Ewers, who will be the starting quarterback back at the reins for the Longhorns when they face Oklahoma. And Sark talked about getting Quinn ready to play, coming off of that injury, that abdominal strain, which is getting better week to week. How do you get Quinn ready to go after some time off here, Sark?
Yeah, I mean, he's just rehabbing as he has been. I think he's been making steady progress, one day to the next, which is a good sign. We haven't had any setbacks. It's been steady progress. I think he's getting stronger and more comfortable and more confident. And so we'll just kind of stay the course with that. OU's defense, I think, a couple things stand out to me is their ability to get to the quarterback. And we just talked about pass protection, but they're one of the country's leaders, nation's leaders in sacking the quarterback. And they do a great job of creating turnovers. And those are both things that are kind of staples of Brent Venables' defenses, right? Very attacking, really schematic. They've got all the schematics, and he's not afraid to call it and do it different from one week to the next. And so I think that attacking style of getting to the quarterback, creating turnovers there's the two main things that really jump out to me.
All right, let's start talking about getting Quinn in the rhythm, and something that will help Quinn stay in rhythm will be the wide receivers, the depth at that wide receiving group. And it seems like now 5 games in, excuse me. It seems like now that we're starting to develop kind of a hierarchy at that receiver position. And I think at the top of that hierarchy is Isaiah Bond. I think Isaiah Bond is clearly like your number one guy who they target early on. And I think he has more dimensions to his game because they're using him on those wide receiver screens, which are basically long handoffs. He's your reverse guy now. Use him in a lot of your reverses, and they like to use him in that way. So I think Bond has become the number one wide receiver for you. I don't know if he's going to be 1,000-yard receiver. I got to go back and see what he's tracking at right now. But here's start talking about Isaiah Bond and that world-class elite speed.
Well, he's fast. He's definitely fast. Everybody's got their own redeeming qualities. And probably at the top of his list from a redeeming quality is he has elite speed. I think what's helped him in coming here was having spent his time at Alabama. Even though I didn't coach IB at Alabama or Coach Milwee or Coach Banks, systematically, I think they kept a lot of some of the things that we did. And so when he came here, the transition for him to integrate himself into the offense and feel comfortable in the offense was probably a little easier for him than maybe a Matt Golden or a Silas Bolden just coming from other places. And so it kind of sped up his process. And then, he makes plays at critical moments. I'll say this, like you look at his career at Bama, everybody knows about the 4th down catch at Auburn. I think just our quarterback seeing that on TV automatically gave him a little bit of a head start. Like, oh, this guy can make a play when you got to have it. And, he hasn't disappointed that way for us. He's made some big time catches, some big time plays. He's starting to become one of those guys. He catches a curl route and you hold your breath because he might spin out and go. And we've seen it now, the reverse for the touchdown. We've seen a bubble screen go for a touchdown. I mean, we're seeing these explosive plays that sometimes you don't always have to throw it to him 50 yards downfield. It can be things in and around the line of scrimmage. He can still create those explosive plays.
Yeah, I think they should get it to him more on those types of plays. The bubble, I think it once a game, he should either have a bubble screen, a tunnel screen, or a reverse. Like one per game. And honestly, you could argue you should have one of each per game. in addition to his route participation, because he's got 2 end around so far this year and has gotten at least 25 yards on both of them. Got a 25-yarder, and then he got the 26-yarder he scored on. Ryan Wingo has got a 55-yarder on an end and around that, we got an explosive play in that Michigan game. And the only negative play that you have is that Silas Bolden handoff that was a negative play on end and around. So if I'm sorry, I want to give Bond one of them per game or a bubble. Hell, he scored on the bubble that got called back in the game versus Mississippi State. He scored on that one. They called it back. And I think once again, bubble, tunnel, or end and around for him because there's a good chance he's going to break it for an explosive play.
I'll give
that fast.
I'll give Bond this credit that when we saw him in the spring game, remember the conversation afterwards was,
Oh, yeah.
man, is there not going to be the chemistry? And then we saw Quinn come out and they had chemistry right away. And then conversation week 2 is that Quinn had come in or Arch had come in a couple times. And I don't think Arch has chemistry with Isaiah Bond. And then we've seen Arch go out and have a great game with Isaiah Bond. And so I got to give him credit that he's worked to build up chemistry with both those quarterbacks, to be in the right place at the right time, do the right thing in the games, to be the guy that you can say through 2 quarterbacks, he has been the most steady force through the beginning of this season. And that, when we were coming into it from the spring game and everything else, that was a big question mark. And it is no longer even remotely a question.
No, it's not. He's the guy. And man, his speed is, we think Xavier Worthy's faster, but I got to say on the field, he does look just as fast as Xavier Worthy. He's going to run a 4.2. I think he's going to run a 4.2 at the combine. He looks like it, doesn't he? I mean, I'm not saying he's going to run a 4.21 and set the record like Xavier Worthy. No, I'm saying I think 4.28, 4.29. He looks like a 4.2 guy.
Yeah.
I've seen 4.3. He looks faster than 4.3 to me. Damn. Anyway, all right, we come back. We'll get into off the record here. Why's Baker Mayfield and Tom Brady? Why are they getting into it? Why are they disagreeing, feuding a little bit? We'll talk about that. Got some other news, notes, and nuggets from around the NFL that we'll throw into off the record. All that and more right here on the Rodcast featuring Patrick Davis and Lifetime Longhorn. Rod Davis coming back on the horn. All right, welcome back to the Rodcast. Time to get to a little off the record here. Okay, so this one actually is about Baker Mayfield, and Baker was talking early this month on a podcast, Casa de Club. I don't know what that is, but it's a podcast, and he was on it, and he was talking about his time with the Bucks and when he first got there. And here's the quote: when he first got there, he said, the building was a little bit different with Tom in there. Obviously, playing wise, Tom is different. He had everybody dialed in, high strong environment. So I think everybody was pretty stressed out. They wanted me to come in, be myself, bring the joy back to football for guys who weren't having as much fun. And apparently, this got back to Tom Brady that he said that everybody was pretty high strung in there in the environment.
I mean, it
pretty
got back
stressed
to him
out
during a game while he was calling it.
Yes,
They specifically
yeah.
gave it to him.
Yeah, essentially, yeah, they set him up for it. But here's what the response, because actually during the Bucks Eagles game, and Baker Mayfield was balling, by the way, he's been balling all season long, and they won the game 33-16. And Tom Brady's partner in the booth, Kevin Burkhardt, he started out the segment and he brought up the Baker Mayfield quote, and Tom Brady said, "quote," and I love Tom Brady's response. I thought stressful was not having Super Bowl rings. So there was a mindset of a champion that I took to work every day. This wasn't daycare. If I wanted to have fun, I was going to go to Disneyland with my kids. He still got the competitive sickness. He's like, what? We ain't here to have no damn fun. We're here to win Super Bowls. I love it. I love Tom Brady.
On the flip of this, because he goes on a little bit more and he goes, there's a right way to do it. And it's the one thing that Tom Brady has to learn at some point in his life, and he never will. There's more than one way to crack an egg, Tom, because Patrick Mahomes isn't a prick.
That's true. That's true.
And he's doing pretty well for himself. So
that's true, but you have to keep in mind that's for it's only one way different for you to do it, though.
There is,
because I can't do it. I can't do it the way I was always told by the radio. It's a great quote from Chad Hastings. You can only do the radio show you can.
Yes.
Don't try to do somebody else's radio show.
Yeah.
You can only do your kind of radio show. And if I try to do it like Patrick Mahomes, I'm not going to be successful. I got to do it the way Brady does it. And Brady does it with a competitive sickness and an edge. Yeah. MJ, hey, you could. There are other ways to win without being an a-hole, MJ, and punching your teammates. But MJ's like, the only way I know how is punching Steve Kerr in the face in practice. That's my way. Yeah. So I agree with you. You're right. There are different ways to do it, but it's only one way for Brady to do it.
There is. But that's at the end. He goes, there's a right way to do it. I'm like, Brady, this is like there's multiple right ways to do it. There's right way for you, which is fine
for him.
But if you're going to be an analyst and breaking things down, it's not about you anymore. It's about whatever. So I get it. I just also don't like Tom Brady because.
Yes, I'm glad you say it every time now. So people need to know that you don't like Tom Brady at all.
I don't like Tom Brady.
Yeah. So all of your opinions on Tom Brady just somewhat skewed. Yeah. But because you don't like Tom Brady, most people they like Tom Brady, or at least
not that he's an announcer. I can tell you a lot of Cowboys fans are pretty much already done with him just because, like, why do we have to hear him every time? Just like everybody's done with Tony Romo, the same thing. Anytime you have to hear the same announcer over and over again, you're like, all right, now I don't like it anymore.
That's true. I didn't even really listen to him that much, and I'm sure he was all right. But
it's not that he's not all right. It's annoying to hear the same guy over and over again be very critical of your team.
Well, your team's not that good. If your team wasn't as bad, the Cowboys fans, he probably wouldn't be as critical of them. All right, so there you go. Tom Brady and Baker Mayfield settling a little bit of a debate about the culture of the Bucs locker room. With Baker's killing it right now. He's doing a great job there. All right, I got a couple of other things, but we'll save those for the other side, or save those for who said that. We'll get into that coming up next hour. Also, we'll dive a little bit into the Major League Baseball postseason action, which starts up tonight. Astros facing the Tigers, so we'll get into that. Also, I'll tell you why the Kansas City Chiefs 4-0 record is a bit surprising, just considering how they've played so far. And I got some numbers that'll back that up. We'll dive into that discussion, and we'll also get into Rod's rant of the day. We're talking Texans. We're talking a little bit of Cowboys. All that and more right here on the Rodcast, featuring Patrick Davis and Lifetime Longhorn Rod Babers, coming back on the Horn. Welcome back to the Rodcast. It is a top of the charts Tuesday. That's when my co-host, the Idealionaire, Patrick Davis, plays jams that reach the top of the Billboard charts on this day in history. And wow, that was a hell of an intro. I didn't realize I don't think I've ever heard the actual intro.
The whole intro. So what's funny is I normally play the other version whenever I play it. There's another version without the extended intro.
And how long is that? How long is that little?
It's like a minute something. It's like a minute.
Whoa, man! I was like, I've never heard this. But what is this?
Do you know?
I know Patrick's playing it for a reason.
Do you know who that's doing it? So this is Dire Straits. We did a One Artist Wednesday of Dire Straits already. Do you know who does the voice at the beginning? Who's singing that beginning part? It's another famous singer, Sting.
Why?
Because they asked Sting to do it, and so
they asked specifically for Sting to do that part.
For him to record it and come in and do "I Want My MTV." And
wow. Oh yeah, I guess you're right about that. Yeah. We're talking about a different era. That I've never heard that before.
Yeah. See,
I mean, obviously, it's a classic song, great song. Never heard that, but then when I heard the I was like, oh man,
I know this one. Yeah.
I was like, I know this. I did not know it had that extended intro. There you go. Learn something new every day.
Back when radio was a lot more spread out, and you didn't because now you could never get away with that.
Oh no, because every song is like 3 minutes now. Like, have you noticed how they've shrunk? They shrank all the songs.
They go straight into chorus,
straight-flation. Yep.
Like, because I used to work for a pop radio station for a while. I was doing on-air stuff, and you would go there, and I was growing up like rock radio. And you go and you do talk intro for stuff, and you go and you'd be able to plug a show and everything else, and then
before the song, the song's like leading
intro the song, and you do all that, and you hit the post, and then the other ones would be like, and here's Taylor Swift. You just go, you have to go right away to it. There's 4 seconds on these intros. Like,
that's why they voice track everything now, right? It's like everything is too quick. You gotta we need you to be 15 seconds and then go right into it.
But
you're right. No, you can't have songs with really elaborate intros like that anymore. I'm sure maybe they do them on albums sometimes, but not for the radio. Not for the radio hits, man.
No, we had 2 on this One Artist Wednesday. Didn't realize that I had 2 in there, but we had 2 on this one because we had "Let's Go Crazy."
Who's the other one?
Which is "Let's Go Crazy's" got like a solid 45-second, 50-second intro where he's talking over it until it kind of kicks in. The song starts going.
Point. Yeah, no, it does. And that's honestly, I don't know, like for the industry, why they started doing it. I'm sure they have a great reason. I always kind of go back to just people just don't appreciate that because we're an attention, ADD generation, instant gratification, and everything has kind of been, I would say, downsized to a certain extent to fit our attention spans. We just don't have it. That's why you never see long form articles anymore. They literally tell you don't write long form articles. People will not read them.
Yeah.
And every now and then you'll get an entity that writes long form articles, but for the most part, like, no, don't write that. People won't read it.
No.
People want the details. They want them quick. Matter of fact, what they're mostly going to read is the tweet or the headline or whatever you post, and they're probably not going to read the entire article anyway.
No.
And to me, that's I think that's reflected in a lot of different industries. I think it's reflected in TV. I always talk about how, you don't get theme songs anymore to TV shows. They go right into them. Boom. Boom. No theme songs. Nobody wants to care about that because you may actually lose, some of your viewership because they're like, theme song. I'm out of here. I'm not watching.
No, it's all done. They do these analytics, like how football and baseball and everything else gets somewhat ruined by analytics. The TV station, everything and radio stations have analytics that basically anytime someone tunes out, they say, oh, the reason they tuned out was because of this. And so they say, if you're talking too much between songs, people are going to tune out. And if you have this long intro, the whole key to radio and pop radio, and one of the reasons why everything sounds like everything else now is the whole key to it is to make you not notice you're listening to radio. That's what the goal is. If you're doing radio correctly, you're not supposed to remember that you have a dial and can change it. They don't want to let you know that in music radio. So the whole point is that they just keep so that's it, because they don't want you to flip it in commercials. They want you to stay where you're at. So so everything has to sound pretty much the same. Everything, you don't want to have anything that stands out like a minute-long intro with Sting saying I want my MTV. You can't have that anymore. You got to go straight into it.
You know what people are thinking about, right? What they're listening to, basically.
No, not at all.
If they start thinking about it too much, they may go, oh, you know what? I'm going to change that.
It's the American way. Don't think, just do.
Yes, just do. You're right. I always kept this little study. The average intro length to songs, it peaked in the 90s. and it's decreased. Like the intro length to the
Yeah,
songs, it peaked in the 90s, and it was in the 90s. I want to say it was like 24 seconds. Like the intro to a song before they actually got into the song. Like everybody had a little intro. That was like part of it. That's part of the the production of it. Now they said the average intro to a song is like, it's less than 11 seconds. The intro to a song. You get right into
it.
It
is funny. I'm sure if I looked at like the times for songs on my one artist or my top of the charts Tuesdays, because they're normally in like chronological order.
Oh yeah,
they normally start pretty slow. They probably start pretty small, so like 2 to 3 minutes, and then they go up, and it's like 4 minutes, 5 minutes, 7 minutes. Like once you get to like the 80s, 70s, 80s,
yeah, the old songs,
7-8 minutes. Like Money for Nothing is an 8.5 minute song.
It's like what? It's like 8. That's a bang for your buck. So it's like album back then. You'd get you wouldn't get as many. I think now they have more songs, but the songs are like 3 minutes.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you're actually getting more content, because back in the day you'd have 10 songs, but 7 of them are 7-8 minute songs. You know what I mean? So I don't know. Yeah, the average song length now in the 2020s is a little over 3 minutes. It's a little over 180 seconds. And it, as Patrick mentioned, it's decreasing year by year. They're getting shorter.
You know why?
And shorter,
you know what
and
else it is? Because we used to have to get up to change the song. We don't have to get up to change the song anymore.
Flip the tape,
press next, you're going whatever. And
true.
so now you're like 8 minutes. Give me a song I like. I don't want to get up and flip every 3 minutes. I got to skip one. Come on,
that's
now.
a great point. It's like, no, I need long songs.
Long break.
I want to sit here and chill for a while. I never thought about that, but you might be onto something, bro. All right, let's get to the Horn headlines. I want to talk about Kansas City for a little while. Get your Kansas City Chiefs take. I do want to talk Texans. I do want to talk a little bit about the Cowboys. And yes, we will preview the Astros' first postseason matchup against the Tigers. We're going to do that, probably do that next segment. So first, let's get updated, educated, and informed on all the top stories of the day with Patrick Davis and the Horn headlines.
All right, your Horn headlines brought to you by Top Gun Rentals and Lawn Equipment. The MLB playoffs begin today with the 4 wildcard series, starting with the Astros taking on the Tigers at 1:30. Framber Valdez will take the mound for the Astros, taking on Tariq Skubal and the likely AL Cy Young candidate for the Tigers. Also today, the Royals take on the Orioles, the Mets face the Brewers, and the Braves play the Padres. In the NFL, the Titans picked up their first win of the season over the Dolphins, 31-12, with Mason Rudolph coming in for an injured Will Levis in the first quarter. And the Lions handed the Seahawks their first loss in a 42-29 win, with Jared Goff going a perfect 18 for 18 on pass attempts for 292 yards and 2 touchdowns. And that is your Horn headlines.
All right. Thank you, Patrick, for the Horn headlines. I appreciate those. All right. I want to talk some NFL. Then we will make our way to some Major League Baseball postseason discussion, mostly about the Astros and their matchup today, midday matchup today. What is it? A 1? Is it 1:30?
1:30. First game, 1:30. It'll be on ABC, I believe.
Oh, there you go. All right.
So it is, I believe,
easily.
I'm assuming ESPN has bought the rights because I think it used to be more Turner had MLB playoffs, right. And so that was why it would be on MLB Network or True TV or wherever you get it during the day.
True TV.
But I believe ESPN and Disney has the rights now. So I think you're getting. I'll check to make sure before I say anything. Yes, 1:30 on ABC.
Nice.
So everyone should be able to watch it. So as much as they are the early game, they are on national television.
I was gonna say, at least everybody can watch them.
Well, if you're off work.
If you just gotta treat it like March Madness, kind of like that March Madness feel where everybody's taking long lunches. And I got a meeting outside the office today. You got meetings outside the office all week long. It's like, actually,
remember it'll be a 1:30 game tomorrow too. This is the best of 3 series. So you'll see. Maybe tomorrow could be a huge one because tomorrow could be a either move on game or a go home game. It will be for one of the teams.
It will be for one of the teams, you're right? And a lot of storylines, of course, familiarity with AJ Hinch. So we'll get to that because I think it's pretty compelling. The matchup, because the Detroit Lions are kind of Detroit Tigers are kind of a Cinderella story this year in Major League Baseball. From the research I've done, a lot of people surprised to find the Detroit Tigers here. So we'll get into that coming up next segment. Let's talk about the Kansas City Chiefs really quickly. Then we'll make our way to Cowboys news, and then we'll also make our way to there's a glaring issue with the Texans that the more research I do about it, the more freaked out I get, the more stressed out I am about it. So I will share my anxiety with you guys coming up here. But let's get let's talk about the Kansas City Chiefs. There's two undefeated teams. We talked about Minnesota because the topic for the big fat poll today, and Patrick threw it out there, is who is the most surprising team in the NFL through the first 4 weeks of the season. And the Minnesota Vikings are winning that poll. At least they were last time I checked, and they still are. 44% of you say the Vikings 4-0 start with Sam Darnold, biggest surprise of the season. And we've talked ad nauseum about that. The defense, Brian Flores, Sam Darnold. But the Kansas City Chiefs are the other undefeated team left in the NFL through the first 4 weeks of the season. And the truth is, even though I told you I'll never pick against Patrick Mahomes, I've learned my lesson. I don't pick against that dude. And I fully believe that they can three-peat this year and more than likely to three-peat because they got Patrick Mahomes and they got Andy Reid and Spagnuolo. But early on so far this season, they have not looked great. Here's my two stats to show you exactly how the Kansas City Chiefs blueprint has shifted a little bit. They're clutch. They're the most clutch team in the NFL, but they're not necessarily a good or well-rounded team. And that's actually going to be even more the case without Rashee Rice, because Rashee Rice, their number one wide receiver, he's going to be out for the season. We'll give you an Andy Reid quote about Xavier Worthy and now how his role is going to change with the news that Rashee Rice is going to be out for the season. But if you look at smallest point differentials for 4-0 teams, all right. And this is we're going back here, right? Super Bowl with the Super Bowl era, basically since the merger. Smallest point differential for 4-0 teams. You have the 1991 Bears. The Bears, they were at plus 14. 1988 Bills were at plus 16. The 93 Eagles were at plus 17. The 99 Patriots were at plus 19 at 4-0. Now here are the Chiefs are plus 20, by the way. Chiefs are plus 20 at 4-0. Here are where those teams finish. There were also some of the smallest, they had the smallest point differentials for undefeated teams through the first 4 games. The 91 Bears, they were 11-5, lost in the wild card. The 88 Bills were 12-4, lost in the AFC title game. The 93 Eagles, they were 8-8, missed the playoffs. 99 Patriots, they were 8-8, missed the playoffs. And the Chiefs are now going to miss the playoffs. All right, sure. I don't think that's not going to happen. So they're likely to be one, but a team with this small of a point differential that's also 4-0, usually they don't make it back, to the Super Bowl. Now, 88 Bills did lose an AFC title game, so that's probably as far as the team has gone with this tight of a point differential. But my point is, yes, they are undefeated, but it's not dominant. I went and looked at teams and how many plays, what percentage of plays they spent trailing and ahead in games so far this year. Kansas City has trailed for 63% of the snaps so far this year. They've trailed for 63%. The Minnesota Vikings have run 5 plays while trailing. So for the two undefeated teams, the Kansas City Chiefs have trailed for 63% of their plays. The Minnesota Vikings have trailed, I think, for 2% of their plays. Only 5 plays they've run all season. Obviously at a deficit or losing, and 0 of those plays have been the second half. So they've spent no time trailing in the second half, and yet we've watched the Kansas City Chiefs already have a couple of comebacks so far this season. And you look, Kansas City now has 10 straight wins without scoring more than 27 points. It's the second longest such streak in the Super Bowl era. So they're saying that blueprint to win it's changing. They don't score a ton of points. They're scoring just enough points to win. They're scoring just enough points to win because they got the most clutch player in history of the NFL, arguably, in Patrick Mahomes. And if you go kind of look at Patrick Mahomes' start, he isn't playing great football either. He's just clutch when they need him in the fourth quarter, game-winning drives, fourth quarter comebacks. If you look at turnover-worthy plays, he's second. He's got 7 turnover-worthy plays. He's tied with Anthony Richardson in terms of turnover-worthy plays through 4 weeks. He's got 5 interceptions. He's second in interceptions in the NFL this year. It's the worst start to a season in the first 4 weeks in his career. He's passing yards. Worst is the fewest passing yards he's had through the first 4 weeks. Touchdown interception ratio is the worst through the first 4 weeks. Passer rating 89.7, worst through the first 4 weeks. EPA per drop back is the worst through the first 4 weeks. They're 4-0. They have 7 straight wins by 1 to 7 points, going all the way back to last year. And they said they know how to win in winning time, in clutch time. But you go watch the 4-quarter game. Oh man, teams are actually, if you look at the entire sample size of 4 quarters, teams are outplaying the Kansas City Chiefs in a 4-quarter game. They're outplaying. They win more than their fair share in those 4 quarters. But in the 4th quarter, nobody is better. And in clutch time, nobody's better. Chiefs, Patrick Mahomes, 8-0. He's 18-14 overall when trailing by 10 plus points. 8-5 in games trailing by exactly 10 at some point. He is 16-12 straight up in games they trailed by 10 plus points at any point since 2019. The next highest win percentage by any team in that situation straight up is 28%. He's at 57%. 13-12 in games where his teams trail by 10 plus points. He's the only QB with a winning record in such situations since 1950. Not even Tom Brady has a winning record in that time span in those situations. He's just clutch. I mean, like I said, I would love to be critical and say, oh man, this is going to keep them from winning a championship. I don't necessarily think it will. I just think he's that good in critical moments. He's that good when it comes to winning time. Not sure what Xavier Worthy's role is going to be now. Here's the quote from Andy Reid when he was asked about the injury to Rashee Rice, going to be out for the season, and how that changes Xavier Worthy's role. He says, we'll see how he does. We've got guys here that have experience of playing in the game. It's not that he's the only one. Doesn't have to be the only one. We've got a good group of guys there that we can utilize, and we normally spread the ball around, and that's what we'll continue to strive to do. They got to expand his route tree because right now he's just running deep overs and deep 9 routes. So if they're going to make him the number 1 guy, they can expand his route tree. But watch out for that. Watch out for Xavier Worthy now being treated like a number 1 wide receiver with Kansas City. So I assume his target rate will go up. Usage will go up. A lot of his numbers should be going up for the Kansas City Chiefs. But it's amazing how pedestrian the Chiefs are through 3 quarters every game. And honestly, I don't think it's because they can't play at a high level. I think it's because, and we see this in the NBA sometimes. I think you see it in Major League Baseball too, where teams have gone on either dynastic runs or they've been good for a long time, and they know how to flip a switch.
Yep.
They know. They're like, nah, we know. We'll flip the switch when we got to flip the switch. Right now, we just need to know in critical moments that we can go out there and make, big plays, and that we can play an elite level in critical moments, which is all they're doing now. But I think they've learned they can flip a switch. And I think we see this. The NBA is famous for it. Major League Baseball, I think teams for a while that they know how at this point in the season, we're going to flip the switch. It's 106-some games. It's a long season. We know at the 90 to 100 game mark, all right, time to turn this thing around. I think the Astros did it this year a little bit. I think that's where we are with Kansas City. They're at the switch flipping stage of their dynasty.
Yeah, and
we're going to see them flip a switch at one point.
Yeah, and I mean, they've had some injuries too. They've had some injuries to the O-line. They've had some injuries. Pacheco goes out, now Rashee Rice, where you can get into that rut of, well, what do you expect from us? We're beat up. Mm-hmm. Like, well, that's not an excuse really, because everyone gets beat up and everyone has to deal with injuries. But you have that so you can make the excuse for long enough, and then you go into it. We know when it flips. The problem is that's when Dynasty's in, is when you go to flip the switch, you're like, nothing's happening. Nothing's happening.
No
oh no,
it's like, we're the same. Well, no.
Did we pay the bill? Did we pay the bill?
Yeah, no, you're right. We've seen that too. Flip the switch is like, they got nothing left. I think they do, but they're definitely at that mode, right? Where they're not, they know they're not playing at a high level for 4 quarters. And I don't think it bothers them that much because they have seen, they know what they're capable of. They're like, no, we know when we flip the switch, it's time. But I'm with you with the injuries mounting and things like that. Will it be the same? Will it have the same potency as it once did? I will say that defense for Kansas City, it's playing better than it's played in their dynastic run. This is the best the defense has been.
Yeah, and I mean,
dynastic run story.
It's that thing. It's that grind of going. Why are there not 3-time Super Bowl champions and
this is
3-peats? is a grind. I mean, you're talking about playing all the way through the Super Bowl, doing media, doing all of that, and then doing the post Super Bowl media and all of that to get you through. Then you finally get a little bit of vacation. And then it's like, okay, it's OTAs. You're right around, You're right back to OTAs. And then you're back in spring, and then you're back at training camp. And it's just, you don't really get that time to decompress it all. And so, even if you're physically getting a little bit better, you're just so burnt out because you never really get that break and that hunger to come back of when you do get knocked out and then you're burned, but then the hunger comes back because you're like, I got that taste in my mouth. I want to get out. You have a good taste in your mouth if you're the Chiefs. You're 4-0 after winning 2 Super Bowls. I know it's not pretty, but most people would take that taste.
Oh, all day, every day, and twice on Sunday. And they're, like I said, they're not playing good football. That's what I'm just trying to point out. They just find a way to win because they're so damn clutch. So, I still think if I had to pick a team right now, I still pick them to win it all.
Because there's no one else that's looked that you said because like the Vikings have looked better, but also it's like it's not proven.
It's Sam Darnold, I don't know if that's sustainable. It's fun to follow right now, and it's great feel-good story.
And nothing will make you question it more than that fourth quarter that the Packers just went, no, we figured it out.
Yep.
Week 4, right. It took us week 4 to the fourth quarter, but we figured out a way to beat you, and we put up 22 points on you in a quarter.
Yeah. So what's Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid going to do? It may take them a quarter to figure it out.
Yeah.
And then, so I'm with you. I don't think anybody else no team has asserted themselves to the point where I would say, hey, they can beat Kansas City. Even with Kansas City playing the way they are, I believe they can flip the switch. And when they do, they're going to be the best team in the league. Let's talk about the Texans, because the Texans were hoping that they could be a team that could challenge Kansas City. Not right now. They're not challenging Kansas City. They got a lot of work to do, and they got to remedy and figure out this one issue. And I think it's multifactorial. So I think if they fix this issue, or at least they show progress in remedying this issue, I think it'll be because they have to address 5-6 different things to be able to improve in this area. So the Texans, you guys have heard me talking about the Texans and their third down issues going back to last season. Didn't like it last season, but last season, there were a lot of they exceeded expectations. So everything was found money last season. It's like, they're the most penalized team on the road. Who cares? They got a rookie head coach and a rookie quarterback. They're winning. They won a division. They won a playoff game. So we didn't complain about much. We talked about it. We didn't complain about, hey, this team has to fix this. No, rookie head coach, rookie quarterback. Like I said, we were just ecstatic that they were exceeding expectations. Well, now some of those issues that plagued them last year are also starting to become systemic issues this year. All right. And they got to address them because now we're past the honeymoon phase, right? The infatuation phase of the Texans. And third and long is that issue for them. They got to figure it out. I don't know now. It's a confluence of issues. It's multifactorial. Number one is just your early down inefficiency. They're not great at running the football on early downs. So that's a big reason why they end up in third and long. They're one of the more penalized teams in all of football. That's why they end up in third and long. So I found these stats. You go look at last week against Jacksonville. That was the 4th longest average third down of the week. They averaged 8.7 yards to go, or yards to gain, I should say, on third down versus Jacksonville. Jacksonville is not a juggernaut, ladies and gentlemen. That is not a juggernaut defense by any stretch, and yet they were able to keep the Texans in third and long a lot of the time. And that was the big issue when they lost the game against the Vikings, right? Was they were in third and long a lot of the times. Matter of fact, they were against the Vikings. And this stat always throws me off. Against the Vikings, they were in third and 10 plus yards to go, 10 plus yards to gain to get a first down. They were in that situation more than any team in the NFL since 2022. So in the last 2 years, nobody had been in more third and 10 plus yards to gain in an actual game than the Houston Texans against the Minnesota Vikings. They had 14 third downs, and 13 of them were third and long, third and 7 plus yards to gain. So you're talking about that is when all the odds flip in favor of the defense. And the Texans this season, they have the 2nd longest average third down yards to gain in the league. Their average third down is third and 9.3 yards to go. 9.3 yards. That's their average third down. That's a recipe for disaster if you're the Texans. And it's from a lot of things. Against the Jaguars, though, I thought they found a little bit of a remedy because remember they started hot and then they hit their lull a little bit later on with the Jags. They had a 60-40 pass run ratio on early downs. first and second down in week 4. And I thought, okay, I think they might have figured something out because they were throwing the football with a lot of success, especially on play action, with play action on early downs. Against the Jaguars, Stroud was 10 of 13 with 140 yards and a touchdown when using play action on first and second down. So they kind of found something on, and his success rate was 71% using play action on early downs. But when that other 40, that's the 60% where they're throwing it on early downs. The other 40 where they try to run early downs is disastrous. They had a 25% success rate when they ran the ball on early downs. When they threw the ball on early downs, 57%. Damn near 58% success rate when they threw the ball on early downs. That's really the problem. So that makes them predictable, but I think they got to throw the ball more on early downs and give it to CJ Stroud. That's part of the remedy. The only other remedy would be they gotta deal with the penalties, because the penalties are also putting them behind the chains often, because they're one of the most penalized teams in the NFL. That puts them behind the chains, and that also leads you to third and long situations. And honestly, that last drive of the game where the Texans end up getting the game-winning drive, CJ Stroud was 5 of 5, had 2 scrambles on that drive, ends up with the game-winning touchdown to Ogunbowale to win 24-20. They didn't. I don't believe they had a third and long on that drive. They were always ahead of the chains. They were always on schedule, and if they can just find a way to be more on schedule, to be ahead of the chains a little bit more, I think they're just scraping the tip of the iceberg potentially with what this offense could be. They're seeing light boxes on early downs too. This is the troubling thing. On early downs, 52% of their runs on early downs came against light boxes because they have so many weapons, right? You got to respect Stephon Diggs. You better respect Nico Collins. He's leading the NFL in receiving right now. You got to respect Dalton Schultz. You got to respect Tank Dell. They got a lot of weapons on the field. So even against a light box, third highest rate of a light box in the league, they still can't run the ball on early downs. That's troubling. That's troubling.
No,
that's on the offensive line.
That's
on the O-line.
It is. And it's Cam Akers too, which we're not expecting huge amounts from. But yeah, I think Joe Mixon saw could, at least in game 1, he could run the football. So if you get Joe Mixon back, he can run. But I think that's been a Bobby Slowick thing from year 1 to year 2, is he's not necessarily running a running back friendly offense.
That's fair.
We talk about quarterback friendly offenses a lot, but a running back friendly where you say no one's going to touch you for 2 yards. So you just got to be able to if you make that one cut right and you do this right, you're golden. He doesn't really run that. He runs, if you can break 2 tackles, you can get a run. But you got to break 2 to get there.
So weird. It's a Shanahan scheme. So weird.
Yeah. I don't know what it is, but it just that whatever the disguise of it is, whatever the implementation of it is, I don't know, but it does not seem to be working. But I mean, you look between that and the penalties on the offensive line. It's just 2 major things that you have to try and just keep working on throughout the season. And that's why, I gave D'Amico more grief of the we fixed it, but that's because if you think we fixed it, then you're not grabbing the bigger picture of these are things that need to be improved all season. These are not overnight fixes. Even if you get a game with a better running, okay, keep working on the run game. You have to keep trying to figure out new ways to attack guys in the run game. If you guys don't get penalized and you have 4 penalties in a game and only 2 are on the offensive line, that's great. You need to go into practice and reward them and then get on them again.
Yep.
Because they're going to mess it. Like it's systemic at a certain point because it's happening all over the field with different players. You have to go in and get that stuff shored up because it's going to be a major problem as the season progresses and you play these teams like the Chiefs are that perfect example of a team that you go, you're not going to beat them. You'll be better than them for 3 quarters and they will beat you. Yep. You can beat the Jaguars. You can beat the Titans. You can beat the Colts because you're better than them and you just have way more talent than those teams. But when you go up against a team that knows how to close like you know how to close, it's over.
Yeah, they're just not a detail-oriented team right now.
No.
They're not into details. And I think that's honestly, I love D'Amico Ryans. That's on D'Amico. Because it's on him to have guys to focus. One of the best examples of them not being into details, the red gloves Laremy Tunsil wore.
Yeah.
in the game. He's got 9 penalties on the season. He's leading the NFL in penalties. He wears red gloves going up against Jacksonville, gets 2 holding penalties in the game. Now he has 11 penalties on the season. And somebody didn't say, hey, you know what red gloves do? They stand out when you're actually trying to get your hands on a defensive lineman. So maybe don't wear the red gloves. Maybe white gloves, something like
Maybe
that.
red glove, even if your hand just slips, gonna look like a hold.
It'll look like everything looks like a hole with red gloves. Everything looks like you're holding. So they got to button up the details, and I think the Texans will be okay. Cowboys, real quick. I know we got to get to break. I want to preview the Astros matchup in their first game of the postseason against the Tigers. We'll do that next segment. But when Stephen Jones was asked on KNC Masterpiece on 105 through the Fan, are the Cowboys thinking about making a trade? Specifically, we're talking about running back and D tackle. Stephen Jones said, quote, I don't know this time of year that anyone's willing to trade their best players. Is just a work in progress. We'll keep our lines of communications open around the league, and if something presents itself, then we'll certainly look at it. Okay, hopefully that's just, coach speak, if you will. Hopefully that's just him throwing that out there for the media, and behind the scenes, they are working vigorously and urgently that they got a list of players from damn near every team that are possible trade candidates for them at D tackle and at running back, and exhaust every possible option and avenue to acquire a run stuffing D tackle and a play breaking presence at running back. You don't have a running back that's got to run over 10 yards.
Nope.
You need a running back that can turn your 6-yard gain into a 16-yard gain. He ain't got to be special or elite, but he needs a play breaking skill set. And you don't have that right now. None of your committee running backs can break a play wide open. They can't.
No. Just show him that Boise State running back over and over again.
Oh,
do that. Just do that.
Oh, yeah, exactly. Yeah, you need somebody who can do that, dude. Do that. That dude.
I mean, when you said there was a play Kenneth Walker had last night, where Aiden Hutchins tackles him and he rolls over on top of him and he gets up
him like twice,
and he tackles him again and he rolls on his head and gets on his feet and runs downfield. Oh, it was ridiculous. But I'll give you the Cowboys running back update. This feels very Cowboys right here. Dalvin Cook tweeted this morning at 7:58 a.m. a star and a prayer hands emoji.
What does that mean?
Does that mean he's coming up? Is he getting called up?
He's coming up. It's got to be.
Is that it?
It's got to be. It's got to be. Is he the play breaker?
It's the dumbest reporting we've ever done, Rod.
Hey man, you said that actually
that's what happened.
Means something.
He posted something. Clearly, he posted something with the star and the prayer hands. And
I think you're right. I think your investigative journalism might have hit the nail on the head. I think he's going to get called up because they need, and this will satisfy the folks like I guess the 105 fan folks and us as well, saying the Cowboys need to make a move. They need to do something, and this is the something.
But I think now here's the thing. You need to do this before you make the trade because you're not going to make the trade while Dalvin's still on your practice squad because you still have that one in the holster. So we need Jerry and the Cowboys to expand all of their options and realize there's nothing else but they have to go make a trade. And if it is, we have to wait a little bit longer for some other teams to be more out of the playoff race. So they feel, all right, we're 1-5 or whatever it is, or 2-5. And we feel like there's no chance we're really going to get into it. So maybe we're more willing to trade off some of these players. It's fine. But until he gets called up, we're not trading for anybody.
Yeah, because we believe he can help us. We like our guys. And it's, I'm with you. That's a good point.
I played Madden 15 last night. He was pretty good.
And they got to play the Steelers next. Oh, the Steelers will convince them. The Steelers, that defense will convince you. You need a play breaking running back. All right, we come back. We'll talk Astros and Detroit Tigers when we come back on the other side. Get you ready for that postseason matchup right here on the Rodcast featuring Patrick Davis. I'm Lifetime Longhorn Rod Davis coming back on the horn. All right, welcome back to the Rodcast. Time to talk a little playoff baseball. Let's talk about the Astros. Go Astros! Who'll be facing the Tigers as their wild card opponent in this first game of the postseason. All right, Patrick. So I think most of the concern from Astros fans about this particular matchup actually is about one of their top players, Yordan Alvarez, and his health and his status, because I think if he's healthy, a lot of people believe that he's that much of a difference maker for the Astros, that he could be the difference in them making a real, actually a real run to win the World Series, or just making a run to the LCS, which is something they've done 7 times already and can do an 8th consecutive time. That he's the difference. Do you feel like he is that much of a difference where if he's not healthy, your World Series hopes are dashed somewhat just because he's that much of an impact player?
He'd be back he'd be back by the next series, most likely. The question, because it's a sprained knee, so you're saying can he make it back this week? Because you may only have 2 games in this, and that's the thing, is this isn't a longer series. This is a three game series. This series is over on Thursday, no matter what. It's over by Thursday. So the question is, can he be back and being able to play at a high level by then? You have to worry about if you put him at the DH, that means you're playing somebody at first base who isn't necessarily the greatest defensive player. Usually they've had some issues over there. So who are you playing there that's, trying to find a guy who can hit and then can catch? And there's just a couple different questions because they have some guys that are hitters but aren't as good in the field. It's good to have Kyle Tucker back. That's a big piece. But because the back of their lineup isn't really strong, it doesn't have good averages. When you take one piece out of that makes a pitcher really have to work around them, it just kind of moves that whole lineup around where they can pitch at guys a lot more aggressively. And having Yordan in there makes them feel like they got to be a little bit more careful. They can't walk a guy before Yordan comes up because that's, you're talking about 2 runs instead of 1 if he pops one on you. So I think that there is worry on it. I haven't heard yet if he's playing or not. I haven't seen. They kept saying they basically keep saying it's a game time. We're waiting, which normally isn't a great sign.
I was like, he's not going to play the first one. Definitely
it doesn't seem like he would. It's at home, so it's a little bit easier because you get to have him go through all of your procedures and stuff, and you're not doing it on the road. But at the same part, it seems like they would hold him till game 2 at this point, and just
because you may not need him.
You may not. I mean, this pitcher for the Tigers, he's really, really good. He's got 18 wins on the season. So this guy's, you're going up against a really good pitcher. The Tigers have been red hot down the stretch. They were 10 games out of the wild card not that long ago and were able to fight their way back into it. I think they went 31-10 to finish the season. That's a hot team. So as much as the Astros keep getting called the hottest team, it's like, I think Detroit might be the hottest team in baseball right now.
Is it Tariq Skubal, who is the Cy Young candidate? A lot of people say it's the Cy Young favorite, actually.
Yeah.
He's been fantastic. How about this one? He became the 7th. The left-hander became the 7th pitcher since 2000 to win a league's pitching triple crown. 18-4, 2.39 ERA, and 228 strikeouts in 192 innings. Yeah, he's a stud. So yeah, I mean that's a good point you bring up about Yordan, and that he should be back for them to make this run at one point. If they did say he was not available for this series, you still feel confident they beat Detroit without Yordan?
I don't know, because the question is, one of their strengths right now is pitching again, and that they're pretty deep at pitching. Where you say you've got Framber going tonight. Framber's had a good season. He's worked on a lot of his issues with that pitch clock came in, and his mentality when the pitch clock came in last year was kind of a detriment to him. He's gotten a lot better with that. Ronio Blanco has pitched well for them. Spencer Arrighetti turned it on the inside. Hunter Brown will be your pitcher tomorrow. Hunter Brown, somewhere in this season, figured it out. And it was a switch where he was not pitching great, and then all of a sudden just had productive start. And even when he wasn't winning, he was starting to pitch better. And so he turned around. Yusei Kikuchi, they traded for him. He's won 9 of the 10 games he started. So he didn't win them all, but the team won 9 of the 10. It wasn't until they were resting everybody after they had clinched the playoffs that he got his first loss as an Astro. And it took 10 games to get there. So you have those guys. And then, Blanco, who pitched a no-hitter earlier this season, Spencer Arrighetti. the fact that Justin Verlander is probably not pitching well enough to even really be in this rotation right now.
He's struggling a little bit. Yeah, he's struggling a little bit.
That should
Are
tell
they going to
you.
use? Go ahead. Sorry. Go
No,
ahead.
but that should tell you where they're at. If you say Verlander, who's a first ballot Hall of Famer, is maybe now on the back end of that and maybe in the bullpen and maybe
That's
not even the starting rotation because of his struggles he's had late. Then you also still in the bullpen have Ryan Presley and Abreu and Josh Hader you just signed. So there's a lot of people on this team in the pitching that they're really excited about. But then you go up against maybe the best pitcher in baseball right now.
Yeah.
And so when you say, well, that takes one game where now it's just about what can you put together, that makes it a little bit more questionable because if you lose this one, you're sitting, it's I know your pitching is great, but it's you got to win 2 in a row or you're out.
Are they using Raniel Blanco as a starter or a reliever?
He'll probably be a reliever, at least in this series. Okay. He would probably be put in there because you're running a 4-man rotation. And so he may be that 4th man. Arrighetti may be that 4th man. We don't know who they're going to put in that.
First world problems, huh?
But yeah, because you say Framber, Kikuchi, and Brent Brown are your 3 starters in this series. So it'll go Brown, Framber, Brown, I believe, and then Kikuchi will be your 3 in this series. And then you can go set up for the next week of where you want to go. You go Framber again, most likely on Saturday, I would assume, if you want to go with that. So you're probably going to try and cut it down to a 4-person rotation. So someone may get knocked down, but then if you get to that 4th game, it may be a Blanco, but whoever it is probably going to be on a really short leash with the other guy behind him.
Yeah, because you're just so deep. Got 5 starting pitchers, basically. Most of them peaking at the right time for you. And you got one of the best bullpens in Major League Baseball, too. So the only question for the Astros is when you get Yordan back.
Is Bregman fully healthy back? Is Altuve fully healthy? Is Kyle Tucker? All those guys have been dealing with injuries on and off all season. Can those guys step up in, with the absence of Yordan if he does not play today? Can those guys step up? And then can you get some help from a Diaz or a Caratini if he's in there, or a Myers or somebody like that? Because Chas McCormick was struggling, hits a home run, and then immediately gets hurt. And so he's probably not going to make a run in this playoffs. So, you just keep losing guys. Dubon's another really good player, but he's kind of hit or miss in we're talking about hitting. Can Jeremy Pena have a run like he had a few years ago and step up in the playoffs? He's been hit or miss this season. There's some guys, if they can get going, then all of a sudden this run changes dramatically. But you're going up against one of the best pitchers in the league right now. And so that's where it becomes, can Framber pull his A game out? And if he's able to shut him down, they're able to get to the bullpen with 1 or no runs. You feel maybe we can get that 1 or 2 runs to get the win.
Yeah, obviously the Astros are a better team, more talented team, but the hot team, as you point out, that seems to be Detroit right now. They're hot, and Cinderella story, if you will, for Major League Baseball this year. We shall see.
And then
the Astros can end that story.
You get the storyline of AJ Hinch coming back. AJ Hinch was one of the guys who had to take the fall for the cheating scandal and was suspended for a year and then fired. And he went on and has been with the Tigers ever since. He actually hired Joe Espada, who is the current manager for the Astros, as a bench coach years ago. So he was Espada's coaching against the guy who hired him for the team that he's now managing.
That's awesome.
But this is also, Espada gets to be in this weird thing that Espada is the 3rd manager now to take the Astros to the playoffs in this run, because it was Hinch, then Baker, and then
and Dusty Baker, and you're right. And now him.
So now Espada. So if he can win and get to the ALCS, that changes it up even more, because you go, how many of these teams do this with 3 managers?
Yeah, that's a great point. How many have gone on a dynastic run like this? And man, what if they get another World Series? That would be wild.
Third, it'll be the third manager.
That would be pretty great. That's definitely something unprecedented. No, good stuff there. Looking forward to the Astros today. I was going to say today versus the Detroit Tigers. Should be a lot of good storylines and headlines from that one. And we'll be talking about it, of course, tomorrow. Hopefully, we're talking about an Astros win in game 1 of that wild card. All right, we come back. We'll get ready to wrap it up and put it in the oven. We'll play Who Said That. That's when Patrick plays pieces of audio from the sports world, sometimes beyond the sports world. And based on the context clues or familiarity of the voice, you have to identify who said that. We're coming right back on the Rodcast featuring Patrick Davis and lifetime Longhorn Rod Davis coming back on the horn. Welcome back to the Rodcast. It is a Top of the Charts Tuesday. That means my man Patrick, our co-host, the Ideallionaire, he's playing jams that reached the top of the Billboard charts on this day in history. So we appreciate him hooking us up there. He also hooks us up with the topic for the big fat poll of the day that is posted on X for you at the Horn ATX already. Go check it out and vote. And he wants to know which NFL team is the biggest surprise so far this season. And 45% of you who voted say the Vikings are the biggest surprise of the season. Not far behind, though. Commanders at 40% of you said the Commanders are the biggest surprise. And then that bad surprise, the Bengals at 10% of you saying their 1-3 start to the season is one of the more disappointing surprises of the season. All right, before we get out of here and wrap it up and put it in the oven, time to play Who Said That. That's when Patrick plays pieces of audio from the sports world, sometimes beyond the sports world, and based on the familiarity or the context clues, you have to identify and recall who said that.
Yeah, well, I just gave the game ball to somebody else, so I feel awful right now. Yeah, no, I knew he played a heck of a game. I did not realize he was perfect. I did not know he was literally 18 for 18. I mean that, but I knew he played really well. You could feel it, and
that is Dan Campbell, head coach of the Lions, who had Jared Goff have the most prolific, perfect passing game in NFL history. 18 of 18, didn't even get a game ball.
No, and he gave out 3 game balls, according to this other thing I'm reading. He gave out game balls to Ben Johnson, the offensive coordinator, Jameson Williams, and safety Kirby Joseph were the game balls, who got the game balls, not Jared Goff.
Jamie Wilson, he did grab 2 passes for 80 yards. One was a 70-yard catch and run, so that was like the big play of the game. And Joseph had the game-sealing interception. But your quarterback went 18 for 18, coach.
Yeah. Well, Ben Johnson went 19 for 19 calling plays. So,
but he got a game ball, so he deserved one.
Yeah.
I cannot believe.
If I'm Ben Johnson, though, I might give that one to Jared Goff and be like, just let you know,
that'd be good.
Man, you about to make me very rich.
Amen to that, brother. Yes, sir. Yeah. You about to make me and my family. Matter of fact, we're going to invite you to Christmas and all the family reunions.
You can have the game ball. Yeah. I will take the millions you are about to earn me, because no one thinks you can do anything. Still, they think it's all me. So.
They're giving me the credit for you having a great turnaround to your career.
18-18, they gave me the game ball. Man, they do not like you, Jared.
Seriously, what is happening? Can Jared Goff get some respect? Who is he, Rodney Dangerfield around here?
You think about the wrong Jared. He's the good Jared, not the bad Jared.
Oh yeah, the bad Jared that's a horrible Jared. That's a despicable, no good Jared. The other Jared.
By the way, some breaking news: Astros just released their lineup for today. Jordan Alvarez hitting number 2 as a DH.
Whoa!
Alvarez will be on the field today, so we do have Jordan. They taking the hint of urgency in a 3-game series. And playing Jordan Alvarez. So good news, though. So means he's ready to go.
They're not overlooking the Tigers there. That's what that means. No, they ain't overlooking them.
He's coming in as a DH, seriously. So he'll be there being able to get some hits in. You also see, let's see, we have Caratini at first base, Diaz at center, Dubon at left field, Jake Myers at center field as your other positions that you may be questioning.
Man, we love Jordan in October. Hitting 295 with 12 home runs, 949 OPS. So we like it in October. And it's October, baby. All right. Thank you, Patch, for everything you do. Thank you guys out there for listening and for watching. Remember, the revolution will not be televised when we talk about it right here on the Rodcast. We love you guys. We mean that. Take care of yourselves, but more importantly, take care of each other. Until next time, hook 'em, peace, and go Stros.